Warning: this podcast features adult subject matter, adult language, and things not meant for children to hear. Viewer discretion is advised. You've been warned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the I'm No Joe podcast, the place where every armchair quarterback can feel like an Eddie Bravo. Today, like most days, we have got a nice little round table together here of gentlemen to discuss some MMA happenings with you. We may have a few more pop in, we may not. You know how some of those slackers can be. But to kick it off, let's go around the room here real quick. Nick Devine, thank you for coming, sir.
Yep, thanks for having me. Nick Devine and Devine on Instagram and YouTube, and thanks for having me. Can't wait to get talking.
Absolutely. Down in the other corner here, we have the one, the only, the Golf T Vapes. TJ, how you doing, brother?
Thanks for having me. I'm always ready to get at this. It was a hell of an exciting year. Ready to get down to business, talk some shit, and come up with some crazy fucking ideas that might blow some people's minds if I'm lucky.
Yeah, you know how it goes down on the show sometimes. And then last but certainly not least, the young pup on the crew, the man with the plan, RJ. How you doing, brother?
Not too bad, man. Just good to be here again. It's gonna be a fun time tonight.
Glad to have you, brother. Glad to have you. So, before we get into the meat and potatoes of what is going to be next week's first UFC card of 2019, UFC Brooklyn, Cejudo versus Dillashaw, there's a couple of other events that have been going on in the industry here that we want to take a little bit of time to have a little discussion about here. So before we get into the funny stuff, there's just a couple things I want to touch on real quick here. The first thing I want to talk about for just a moment here, because they literally just announced it yesterday, and I am extremely excited to talk about, is going to be the High Rollers BJJ Tournament, Pittsburgh. So for the uninitiated, the High Rollers is a both gi and no gi submission only Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappling tournament system based entirely around cannabis. They call it mixed marijuana arts. Now, it's not a requirement that you be super enthusiastic, but they do require that every competitor smoke before and on occasion during the matches. So this is one of the most free-flowing, most creative, most chill, relaxed, but also technically impressive Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu event series that I have ever seen in my life. I would akin it to the EBI combat Jiu-Jitsu tournaments, but stoned as shit, because these boys are just chiefing like a Cheech and Chong movie the entire time, and everyone watching and not competing is also generally smoking. So it is literally the best of the best, the highest of the high-ranking BJJ practitioners in the world come to either to coach or compete in these events, and you get to see some of the purest and cleanest, also most technically savvy jiu-jitsu moves pulled off by guys who just got done roasting their brain on Fat Bubba Kush. This is not only one of the most entertaining things I've ever seen. As an MMA and a martial arts fan, just some of the creativity that these events inspire, it's almost speech deducing, because you see moves that you'll never get to see in an MMA octagon. You won't get to see this shit pulled off in the UFC or in Bellator, because this is stuff that in reality in an MMA cage, you'd be getting your face pounded in or getting kicked in the fucking thigh while you're trying to cinch something up. But in a submission only, you don't have to worry about that stuff because there's no strikes. It's just pure jiu-jitsu. So the creativity of some of the moves, and on the counterpoint, some of the escapes that you see from submission moves during events like this are just off the charts. And I've talked about it a little bit before, but I'm wondering if any of you guys have seen any of these high roller events before.
No, I've never seen one before. I'm interested to watch it, though. I've heard a lot about the how them two cultures are always intertwined, and it's very interesting. I'd like to see it, and it's very close to me too.
It is.
That's
it
pretty
is.
awesome.
That's also one of the reasons I wanted to mention it.
Yeah, yeah. So that's pretty awesome. I'm right in Philly, and it's in Pittsburgh, right?
Pittsburgh, March 30th. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Definitely something I've heard of before. Never had a chance to witness the event myself. I'd like to see how it works out compared to a traditional gi no gi competition that doesn't include the extracurricular, which I think is fucking awesome.
Right.
Because little mind bending goes a long way with a lot of body bending. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly.
So it could be really cool to watch. Would love to see that. Probably gonna have to figure out a way to watch it in one way, shape, or form, even on a replay, just to see how it goes down. Because I think it would be definitely something to behold.
Well, and the High Rollers tournament, I guess it would be the production crew or production company, has a YouTube page, and they've got the previous two events highlights, and then in complete form, the entire event from their cameras that they had set up. They actually stream it live on their own YouTube channel for free. And then they broke it down into segments afterwards. So you can watch the individual matches if you just want to see one particular part, or watch the block and watch the whole thing start to finish. So I encourage anybody that hasn't seen it yet, take a little bit of time and troll around on their YouTube. It's beautiful. Some of the matches are just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I haven't heard of a high rollers thing in like 7-8 months now. And I watched one of the first ones of 2018. That was pretty interesting. I'm
Yeah, one up
kind of
in
excited.
San Jose.
Yeah, kind of excited about this. I
Yeah,
didn't know they did any other ones in 2018 though. So
yeah, they did. They had
fun.
one in September, and one of the highlight matches was Daniel Strauss's return to competition, and his match. Those boys, they were quick and they were slick, and the whole time your jaw's just in your lap, going, "Oh, and then you feel like a little kid watching your first sports event, man. They're so quick and they're so smooth, and it's so like technically accurate. You're literally watching like real high level jiu-jitsu practitioners, higher than Giraffe Pussy, going at it.
I mean, my thing is, I just want to know what strains they're like able to pick from. That'd be interesting to put to the public.
Oh, they talk about it a lot. A lot of the suppliers for the events are there putting out big boots, and then most of the prizes for the actual competitions were like one of them was like 10 grand in cash and like 3 pounds of fucking like Bubba Kush. One of them was like $5,000, and then like a certificate for like a whole new gi lineup, and then a weight set, and then like a pound of weed. Like, yeah, it's very incorporated. They're very open and detailed about it. It's pretty interesting.
Shit, that's interesting. I know that.
It's one of those things that brings a lot of things that I love in my life together into one convenient place for me. So I was very intrigued when I first found out about it. And the more that I've looked into it, and the more that I've watched it, and the crew themselves will interact with you. Like I said, they stream their shit live and they talk in the chat to you. They're willing to talk with people. They're real down to earth. They're cool folks. It's really a cool thing. I'm really happy that it's really taken off and starting to get its grasp in the community here. But from that, we will scoot right along here to the next little side note that I want to talk about, because this doesn't have anything to do with this coming up weekend in Brooklyn. This doesn't have anything to do with what we're going to talk about here in just a little bit. What I want to talk about is some of the announcements that have come out during this last week pertaining to the lineup of what is going to be the UFC 235 card. So I've got a little infographic over here. I'm going to try and crop it and put it into the video here when it's all said and done, so you guys will see this in the finished product. But what I'm looking at here, and I'm just going to run it from the top of the main event down to the main event itself here. So what it looks like we're going to be opening with is Mickey Gall versus Diego Sanchez. Then we're going to Neil Magny versus Jorge Masvidal. Then we've got Holly Holm fighting Aspen Ladd at 135. Aspen Ladd is coming up and she's dangerous. Then we've got OSP stepping back in against Serkinkov. That dude has got steel hands, and OSP needs to be very careful against him. Then one that has got me very interested because it is definitely going to shake up the division in one way or another here. Little Heathen Jeremy Stevens versus Zabit. Margamashevapov, however he says his last name that took Joe Rogan 3 months to figure out how to say. The following fight after that, Cody Garbrandt versus Pedro Munoz. You want to talk about a fucking striking battle? Cody wants to call himself a striker. That's a man who's going to put you to the fucking test for it. So then comes the match that TJ and I have been anticipating for several months now. And I'm not sure why they made it to be this one, but it is this one. Robbie Lawler versus Ben Askren. Askren making his debut in the UFC after the trade with ONE FC for Mighty Mouse. Then we've got a dual title defense for the main and co-main event of 235. The co-main event is going to be Tyron Tyquil Woodley versus Kumari 30% Usman for the 170 belt. That has got interesting ramifications and a lot of different discussion that we're going to be having when we get closer to that match. But then comes the one that was just added the day before yesterday that I find extremely, extremely appropriate and interesting at the same time. And that is John Jones's first title defense at 205 against Anthony Lionheart Smith. Anthony Smith is on a fucking tear, and I don't know anyone else in that division that deserves the title shot more than him. But stylistically, that's going to be one hell of a matchup because those two dudes are very similar. They're very closely sized, and some of the techniques that they both use, it's going to be interesting to see how they can switch it up or incorporate it to make it work against a style so similar to their own. But we've got months to get out and to talk about that one. What I want to get into first here is, since this is the first show that we're doing in 2019, what I want to do to really put our first meat and potatoes subject down here, get a good roundtable discussion talked about. What I wanted to talk about, and I gave all these guys heads up to get a little bit of their own decisions, I want to talk about our top 3 most important or most influential fights of 2018. And now I want to clear this up for the listeners and the viewers. I don't mean your personal favorite fights of 2018. I mean the most important to the MMA world or the most influential to the UFC itself. So I'm going to hold mine in reserve. I'm going to go last here for a change. I'm going to let RJ give us our first 3 top fights of 2018. What do you say, brother?
Dang. Okay. Well, I have a couple written down. One that's not really influential, but it is to the fighter because he was kind of concerned with himself getting up in age and still being a fighter in mixed martial arts. It was the Yoel Romero fight with Whitaker.
Whitaker too.
He was concerned with himself getting up in age, and that was something that kind of became prevalent in the fight with him getting knocked out. He was concerned with himself getting up in age. It's not really something that was big for the UFC, but I see it big for the personal fighter itself. So that's something that I did wanted to add in.
Well, and to his credit, he also rocked Whitaker and almost put Whitaker out during that fight before the tides changed as well. So I'm not the biggest Yoel Romero fan in the world, but I will gladly give props where props are due. And for a 40-year-old man, that dude's still scary
41.
as shit. Yeah, 41 now, that's right. He's still scary as shit.
That was his first fight after he turned 21 or 41. He turned 41 like a month and a couple of days before the fight. Yeah, he was very concerned with his age. And then, I mean, one that I don't feel like I couldn't put it down because of just the cockiness of the fighters was the Khabib versus Conor fight, because the overall cockiness between fighter to fighter, like we that was one that I had to put on. There's cocky motherfuckers.
Absolutely.
And the more cocky one got put into its place. Connor got fucked by a rear naked choke.
Yeah.
And the Ronaldo Weidman fight. I wanted to put that one on as well because that was a fight that I really look forward to. When they first announced that they were going to do that fight, I really look forward to that because Weidman being on a rampage that he was at that point of 2018, and then just Ronaldo Souza just drop him.
Jacare's nothing to overlook, man.
Yeah.
any capacity. Jacare is always dangerous from everywhere.
Yeah. Those are my three, though.
That's a good 3, man. That's a damn good 3. So, TJ, what do you got for a top 3, brother?
Well, I had a kind of a toss-up for what order I wanted to put them in, so I'm not going to leave them in any in particular order. Because I had a couple that were kind of close toss-ups. But the first one I'm going to start with is Frankie Edgar, Brian Ortega.
Damn good fight.
More than one reason for this fight. 1, fantastic fight to start with. But 2, Ortega, first one to ever put Frankie away.
Absolutely. And that was a
With
fucking
strikes.
Historic moment, too, because I
That
don't
big
know
ol'
anyone that
uppercut got
saw
him.
it. I don't know anyone that watched that fight and saw that coming.
No,
Frankie's a fucking master, and that was just awe-inspiring.
you know, looking at that fight, what I thought was going to happen was he was going to end up tapping, not sleeping.
Yep. Likewise,
Hey.
I thought Ortega was going to try and strike early and then realize it wouldn't work, and he was going to try and take it to the ground and end up submitting Frankie. That's the way I saw it as well.
The third point to this fight, it set up a fight to show just how fantastic of a fighter Max Holloway is.
Absolutely.
Because he beat the brakes off of Ortega. I love Ortega. T-City, I got all the love in the world for him. Fantastic. He's getting better and getting better. He's nowhere near the level of fucking Holloway right now.
Right.
Obviously, there's nobody in the division that is because Ortega tore through those motherfuckers.
Fuck yes, he did. Quickly,
So,
too.
I'm just saying that fight for what happened during the fight and what it set up to prove to the world that Holloway is the best fucking featherweight out there. In fact, I would lay 10-1 odds right now. I know it's not going to happen, but if it did, him and Connor's going to fucking sleep. And I will say that because Holloway has improved so much and he stayed active where, don't get me wrong, I love watching Connor talk trash, but that case, you're just going to end up fucked.
I hate to admit it because I am a very, very big Connor fan as well, but I absolutely have to agree with you. The progress that Max has made since he and Connor first fought is leaps and bounds above anyone else in that division. Absolutely, undeniably. And I think realistically, the way that Connor still fights today, or the way that Connor has adapted to fight today versus the way that Max has adapted to fighting today, I don't think Connor could take him this time.
Nope, not at all. Which, no,
And that
that
hurts a
one,
little bit.
it does, because I like Connor, but I think it's more I like his fucking attitude.
And plus, he has a way better gas tank. Holloway does.
Yeah.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
He just fucking run the bike on him. He pulled the old Mayweather there and just ride the bike around on him.
Yep.
No, that was one of them. The other one here is going to throw people a little bit because it's not a big fight and it didn't have a lot of drastic change for anything, but it did one of my favorite things. It shut somebody the fuck up that I really can't stand. And that match was pretty recent here. Ragin, Al Iaquinta, and Kevin Lee. I can't stand Kevin Lee's shit-talking ass. I'm going to say that right now. Kevin Lee, you are a good fighter. You've made it into the UFC. But your alligator mouth still overloads your canary ass all the fucking time. It just took you to get back in there with Al and prove that you really have not improved your game at all. You were just fighting lower class opponents and getting lucky. Period.
Yep.
And this brings me to this other fantastic point with Al. That was prior to this. The Al versus Khabib fight. Al should not have been in there versus Khabib. Last 5 rounds with him goes to decision. This was one of my honorable mentions because that proves Khabib is very fucking beatable. When you got a guy that goes in there that's training for a 3-round fight, not training for him, and can last all 5 rounds and stuff takedowns.
Repeatedly.
I'm just saying, fucking Ally Quinta is moving on to another level. There was a year or two, about a year and a half ago, where Al said, you know what, I'll fight when I want to fight. I've got a successful business flipping houses. Now he wants to fight, and he's going in there, and he's kicking ass and taking names. Yes, he lost the Khabib fight, but he took that man the fucking 5 rounds. Nobody else has come close to doing that. So that tells me when it finally happens, and God, I can't wait for it to happen. And it better happen. Tony Ferguson and Khabib is fucked. Tony is going to walk a mud hole dry in him. That's just how that's going to work.
Absolutely.
And Al Quinta proved it. That's all I'm saying. So Al beating the piss out of Kevin Lee, shutting that motherfucker up, giving him a little dose of humble pie. Fan-fucking-tastic. And just proving Al is someone to be reckoned with. Doesn't matter who he's fighting.
Yep.
He might not win, but they're gonna know they were in a fucking fight. That's for sure.
Well, and the thing that a lot of people forget about that Al versus Khabib fight, Al took that fight on 20 hours notice.
20 hours. That's right.
Not even a single day. He took it on 20 hours notice and then took Khabib to a full decision, 5 rounds, and stuffed takedown after fucking takedown after takedown and stung him with quite a few good shots. So imagine what an Al on a full fucking camp could do against Khabib. I agree completely. I think when they put Tony and Khabib together finally, which is destined to happen here, Tony is going to beat the brakes off of Khabib. And then when Khabib has to start his trail back to the top to get his belt and they throw him to Al, I think Al is going to drop Khabib right back down those rankings to about the middle of the pack where he really should be.
Yep. That way he can't wrestle fuck his way to the top anymore.
Exactly.
But that is what it is. He is that kind of fighter. I can't say anything. Whatever works, I get it. It's not interesting to watch because we all know what you're going to do. You're going to dry hump them until they fucking get drug rash. I get it.
Well, and it's not a secret that I am not a Khabib fan. I have not been a Khabib fan. I don't enjoy watching wrestlefuckers on the mat. It's one of the reasons I don't like Cormier. I'm not the biggest Cain Velasquez fan in the world, and I know that's not a popular opinion, but I think there should be more skill to your game than just being able to hold a guy down until he runs out of options for you. It's a one-trick pony scenario in my point of view. But I will give credit where credit is due in the Khabib case here. He sticks to that policy that is do what got you to the dance. And what got him to the UFC is holding dudes down until they fucking run out of energy and then either submitting them or punching them till the fucking ref stops. And to his credit, he still is doing that just as much and to just as strong of an extent as he has been the progress of his entire career. So, I mean, I'll give him that, I guess.
Yeah. Can't take it away from him, I guess. I understand that.
Right.
And all that brings me down to one last one. And this one, I think this should have made everybody's top list, period. Because Jones versus Gustafsson, period. Why? Because there's only 2 words that need to be said about this fight. We all know how it went down. It was a fantastic fight. Good to watch, but there's only 2 true words that need to be said. Daddy's home.
Damn right. I thought you were going to say pictogram, but that works too.
No, fucking daddy is home and back to running the division. I'm, for lack of better terms, I'm cautiously optimistic.
Yes, I think that's a good phrasing.
Because I really, really, really hope fucking John has got his shit together. I love John Bones Jones. Even with the terrible, stupid decisions he's fucking made.
Yes, repeatedly.
On more than one occasion. I get it. You were young, dumb, full of cum.
Okay.
It is what it is. You're to that point in you're now past the 20s. Please. Fucking adult. You're a fantastic fighter. Don't fuck it up for those of us who really want to watch you. I get it. There's a lot of people who are going to say, you're a cheater, this, that. Look, that's already gone through the rigorous role there. They've already proved it was not a purposeful ingestion. So, you know what? I'm going to this is going to sound so dirty. I'm going to side with you, Sada, to say, yeah, you weren't dirty. It was inadvertent, which is why you only took a minimum sentence. However, pay attention to what you're putting in your fucking body. Don't fuck up again for us. Don't do fucking drugs and drive cars anymore.
Yes.
Just fucking focus on fighting, beating the brakes off of people, and somehow getting in there to beat DC's ass one more time. But beat him so mercilessly, he'll never think about ever fucking stepping in the octagon again. I want you to break his face, his fucking arms, and maybe if you beat him enough, he'll get skinny.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
I think
only
that,
until he gets back to that Popeyes.
I think the key is to just keep scheduling them fights right away like they just did. Like, I think if he has them scheduled fights, as long as he stays, good with USADA, he's good. But stay active. That's just, he's got that personality. But that's also why everybody likes him, is because everybody likes a good, comeback story. Everybody likes that. Like, as much as, yes, he's a fuck-up, we want to see him do good. Everybody wants to see him do good.
Fuck yeah, everybody except DC.
Yeah.
This fight was one I had to put on there because there was two other fucking fights that I had to put on there as well, but list only being 3, I couldn't. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw the other 2 honorable mentions out there that I had for this. One changed the face of the UFC in my opinion forever. DJ versus Cejudo. Is that with DJ losing the title, I have this really strange feeling, especially with the Cejudo Dillashaw fight that's about to happen. They're going to nix an entire division. DJ was what kept that together, and to be honest, a split decision like that, I didn't. It was a toss-up. I would have hated to be a judge during that fight. I get it, but that I think is going to change the entire face of the UFC. I have this fucking just sneaking suspicion that this fight, depending on how it goes, will completely remove that division. If Cejudo goes in there and gets his ass handed to him, which I'm pretty sure he's going to, they're probably going to nix that division because they're saying, guess what? You guys aren't going to be able to come up and make super fights or anything like that. So, and if Cejudo wins, they're going to go, oh, guess what? You can all come up fucking 10 pounds and fight in this division because if Cejudo can beat the champ there, you guys can too. So either way it goes, I have a feeling they're going to nix it. And the other one is a must, Cyborg and Nunes. This was my other honorable mention. I couldn't put it on top because it doesn't really change the face of women's MMA, except for it solidifies it.
Right.
Which is, Ronda Rousey was never the face of women's MMA. Yes, she got it to the point where it is, but she was never the face of it.
She was a pioneer. Yeah.
She was a pioneer. It's kind of like watching Randy Couture. He was a pioneer. One of those guys who helped get it to where it was. But she was never the face. That face is Amanda fucking Nunes. You know what?
For now.
Not just. I'm gonna say not just for now. She will be for a long time, namely because of the way she put Cyborg away.
Two legends in under a minute. What people see, 2 female legends in under a minute.
Yeah, actually 3. You're correct.
3.
Misha.
What's the third?
Misha.
Oh shit.
Misha.
She retired Ronda, then she retired Misha, then she just.
Could you imagine?
Away.
Could you imagine she fights Holly Holm and beats her? That would be crazy.
I'm just saying, at the route she's going and tearing people up, they'll be lucky to have anybody come in and blow the roof off the building like she's doing. Nobody thought it was going to happen with Rousey until fucking Rousey fucking got her head kicked off by Holly Holm. Holly Holm's star never blew up the way it could have. Namely because she couldn't string anything together after.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was more Holly's fault than the UFC's fault, though.
But you look at Amanda, she's stringing shit together, and she's progressively getting better.
I would agree with that to a degree. The asterisk that I would put on that point would be Valentina Shevchenko. If you go back and watch either one of their fights, and I realize that in both situations, the judges in the decision, which both of those fights went to a decision, both of those decisions were given to Amanda. But if you go back and watch that fight in either case with an outside perspective, no bias, don't listen to the commentary, put the shit on mute and watch both of those fights, Valentina handled Amanda both times. And now Valentina has taken over the 125 division, but plans to go back and fight at 135 again. So if Amanda decides to keep defending that 135 belt and Valentina can figure out what she did wrong to not be able to finish the previous two fights that, in my opinion, she won both of, and she can change that up enough, Valentina can have that 125 and then take that 135 belt and force Amanda to only have 145 to hide out in. And the fact that there's somebody with that much potential and that much history with her, in my opinion, keeps Amanda from being the face of women's MMA. Like I said,
it's hard to not call her that right now. Double champ.
Well, and that's what I said. Far be it from me to take credit from anyone where credit is due. Whether I like them as a fighter or not, I will give props where props are due. And she handled Cyborg like serious fucking business with no playtime. And for that, you can't fucking help but give her mad respect, because you've seen what Cyborg's done to everyone else.
And she took the shot from Cyborg and walked through it.
Yep, she Cyborg.
Yeah, she fucking just and put herself to sleep. That's all. That's why I'm saying that one has to be an honorable mention for the year, because in my opinion, right now she is definitely the face. Don't get me wrong. Shevchenko handled Joanna.
Yep.
Fucking handled her. But
that's my entire argument, though, is that we saw Joanna get handled by Valentina, and on the other end of that spectrum, she went 5 rounds and 3 rounds in their first match with Amanda. And you just saw what Amanda did to Cyborg. So if you MMA math that out, Valentina should be able to do that to Cyborg just as easily, which means how good is Valentina really? Because she just did that to Joanna and went 5 rounds with Amanda. So
the only problem with that argument is we all know MMA math don't work.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I see where you're at with it, but MMA math don't fucking work.
I'm just saying there's
a lot more fights.
No, I agree. I'm just saying there's a lot of room for that face of women's MMA debate.
I'm just saying, based on that last podcast of the year that I didn't get to make it for, I did call a couple of those fucking crazinesses.
Absolutely, and we gave you credit.
In fact, I'm pretty sure if you look at my notes, I said 3rd round stoppage for Jones. I knew what the fuck was going to happen.
Almost everything that you said came to fruition on the very last one, 2018. Almost all of them came to fruition.
Yeah. Occasionally, I pull a rabbit out of my ass, you know.
Yeah,
I
was extreme. I really wanted to get you to have you on to see where you're coming from the Nunes Cyborg fight, because you went for Nunes on that. I really wanted to see where you were coming from to get to where you came down to that decision, but man, you were on the money.
You know what part of that was? Here, I'll give you the insight, even though it's a week late.
Go for it.
She didn't have the pressure on her.
Okay. All right.
When she went in,
still had a belt. Yeah.
She had her belt, and people were expecting her to lose. If you watch the fights where she is expected to lose or is rated as an underdog, she goes in and fucking tears people up.
Okay.
That was a large portion of that, but also look how hard she fucking hits. She hits just as hard as Cyborg, and she technically weighs less. She got to move up. In fact, she weighs a lot less because Cyborg's walking around at a healthy fucking 195, 200 when she's not fighting.
Almost 200, yeah.
Yeah, yep. And it's not that she's fat; she's just fucking yoked.
She's a beefy broad. Steroids do that too.
Yeah,
allegedly. Yeah.
Even if you've done them years ago, you still get benefits of having that muscle that you've gained from. Yeah, but can I do my top 3 now?
Absolutely, you're up, brother.
My third one was actually one of TJ's, the Iaquinta and Lee. He basically said everything. The one thing that I liked about Iaquinta was, obviously, if Lee would have won that, that would have definitely been Khabib Lee, because the talk would have been, this guy almost went the furthest with Khabib. That's what it, and Iaquinta drew Khabib into his game. Really, it was more of a fist fight.
Yep.
So that was one of them. And then TJ also said 2 of my up and recon. But anyway, I'll add another one. So my third one would then be Jose Aldo, Jeremy Stevens, because it was good to see Jose Aldo win again. Him getting later in his career, even though he's young, he still is young. He's like 33 or something.
Yeah, but he had a long career because he started as a soccer player and was a pro soccer player for years. And then he had the fucking incident where he got his fucking face sliced by a gang and he had to do the recovery. And then he's still, even though he's still that young, he still had years and years of mixed martial arts fighting before he became the UFC Jose Aldo that we see today.
Yeah, he looks 50.
He sure the fuck does, man. He's aging like milk, but he's still a fairly young guy.
Yeah, but that was awesome to see him win against Stevens, because Stevens, he's one of the scariest fuckers. Yeah, it don't matter what weight class. Like, after what he did what he does to everybody, but especially what he did to Evans, you don't want to be underneath him at any point. So that would be my third one. So 2 would be, this is kind of all right. It would be the Tyron Woodley versus Till. And that's because we've seen a lot of people that were undefeated go down this year. They got exposed, and that's just going to help Till. So I think I like that, and I like Tyron Woodley.
Somebody has to.
Yeah, somebody has to, I guess. So it's I guess it's I kind of like Dana White, I guess, but it's almost like an enemy of my enemy's my friend kind of thing, I guess.
Well, to his credit, that's where Tyron got his black belt. When he choked out Till, as they came into the octagon, he was given his black belt on the spot. And he has said in the interviews after that the black belt he got for that submission from his master meant more to him than getting the belt put back around his waist, because he already felt like a champion. But when he showed his ability to put that choke through, and it showed his teacher that he had what it took, and he got that black belt issued to him, that was more important to him. So, again, not my favorite guy in the fucking world, but I'll give props where props are due.
Yeah, I mean, I liked seeing it. Was definitely a more enjoyable fight. I think we've seen with the karate. What is his name? Yeah, Wonder Boy, and then with the other jiu-jitsu specialist. What the hell? Anyway, he had them 2 boring fights, but it came back, and you've seen that. Maybe it's not all him with them boring fights. Like it's a 2-way dance. And you've seen that with Till and Wonder Boy. That was a boring fight, because that's just Wonder Boy fights. It's just it's very dangerous. And so then my number 1 would be Holiday Ortega. So because of what was going on with Max, and Max's, man, he's something else. That fight really showed he's something. And so is Ortega. I mean, he took a fucking beating. Dude, I think it showed, in my mind, Max he's a bit punchy. He just talks like that. That's just how he talks now. He slurs a lot. He repeats himself quite a lot. When he hears people laugh at what he says, he'll say it a million times. What planet is this? Oh my God. How many times did he say that whole fucking fight thing? I love him to death, but he's a bit punchy, and I think we don't have to really worry about it, because he's smart in the ring. He's going to be all right. But yeah, that was also one of my favorite fights this year too.
You know, this is something I can say about Holloway or Hawaiians in general from the part of the island that he's from. A lot of them do talk similarly like that. So part of that, I think, is where he grew up heritage-wise. I don't think it's that we have all those sorts of fucking worries of weight cutting issues. It's definitely, I don't think it's that because he did obviously just fucking fine in this last one.
Hell yeah.
I think there was something else going on there that they just didn't want to tell us about.
Yeah, possibility.
Yeah, it's good to see him back though.
You're talking about what's his name repeating his words. I believe somebody brought up in a conversation. I was talking about like his background and everything, and aphasia. Aphasia is like a medical condition that can cause stuttering. I have it, where it causes your brain to work faster than your mouth, or your mouth works faster than your brain. People were talking about that being a thing of why he constantly repeats certain words so much, is because he's trying to complete his sentence. I have it too. I stutter a lot, and people, like certain people in the journalism field, think that it could be something of a medical diagnosis versus anything else. That's something that is kind of interesting to think about.
Yeah, and that's something they mention a lot as well.
Yeah, and it's automatically people are going to go to the two worst things. Either he just got knocked out or it's weight cut, but it could be just something totally different. I mean,
right. And in a situation where a guy gets punched in the head for a living, they're generally going to go to the first result that would associate with somebody being punched in the head, as opposed to something that could be a completely unrelated medical condition, like you were saying.
Yeah, like my very first fight in Ohio, I stutter, and the side ring medic was like, "Oh, concussion protocols." No, I have aphasia. What's that? Cool. I'm gonna walk away now.
That's crazy.
Okay, so I'm going to run mine down real quick. So before I run my top three, I've got an honorable mention list as well here because, like we said, there was just too many fucking good fights in 2018 to only mention three and not at least give a little hat tip to a couple of the others here. So one that a couple of you guys did mention was Al versus Kevin Lee too. Both TJ and Nick both mentioned that fight was so fucking monumental for so many fucking reasons. You have to mention that in any list for 2018 as far as I'm concerned. Same with Holloway and Ortega. Same with Nunez versus Cyborg. All three of those are on my honorable mention list here, and I'm glad I was not the only one that mentioned all three of them here. My other three for honorable mention, I would say, was Cowboy versus Mike Perry in Denver for Cowboy's breaking of the most wins in UFC history and for most finishes in the UFC history simultaneously by defeating Mike Perry, the guy that Cowboy's own gym, Jackson Wink, chose over Cowboy and essentially ran Cowboy out of his home gym for over a decade to train the new guy to fight him at home, where Cowboy's from. Cowboy comes out and puts on a fucking class on why you don't underestimate somebody. And the look on his face when he peels Mike Perry's fucking arm back and then looks back at the cameraman like he's in a fucking gladiatorial combat scene from an old Roman movie is beautiful. And then as soon as he wins, the first thing he does, he walks to the side of the cage and he points at his old lady and his grandma, and he has his son brought into the fucking ring wearing a bad motherfucker ranch cowboy belt with little boots and earmuffs on. He puts his cowboy hat on and he parades his son around the fucking ring and then gives his grandma a kiss. That's a fucking monumental moment in 2018 as far as I'm concerned.
Fucking A, right, it was.
So then you follow that up with another monumental moment of 2018, in my opinion. Valentina Shevchenko versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk for the fourth fucking time, because they fought in Muay Thai 3 times already. But this time when they fought in the UFC, It was for the new 125 women's belt. And Valentina took that shit without hesitation. I have a very strong feeling that Valentina Shevchenko was holding that 125 belt until she decides that she's done with it. That was a big portion in the MMA side of, or in the women's side of the MMA year of 2018's big things that happened. And then my last honorable mention that I've got to throw out there, because this has set up some big things that are coming in 2019 now, is Israel Adesanya versus Derek Brunson. I have been screaming from the fucking rooftops about Israel Adesanya since they first announced they brought him into the UFC and they gave him his contract. And every single fucking fight this kid has been in there, he has proved why I've been screaming about him so much. He, like Joe Rogan himself says, looked like he was in the Matrix in that fight against Derek Brunson. He was never in any sort of trouble. He was out of the way of everything, and he could almost see the angles. You could watch the gears turning as he would step out and fucking drop on him or counter and pick him apart, step out of the way, lead him to the cage where he wanted him to. It was reminiscent of watching a cat play with a mouse. There was never a point where Derek Brunson had any hope in that fight. And Israel Adesanya, rather than gassing out or going real big and real flashy, stayed precise, stayed measured, and just ended it and turned and walked away. No glitz, no glamour, no fucking highlight reel, just precision and knowledge that he fucking had this. And the fact that they're giving him Anderson Silva next is another reason that I wanted to mention this fucking fight, because that kid is somebody that you can't fucking help but keep your eyes on, because he is going to make fucking waves like no one before him has in the UFC as far as I'm concerned. Now, for the actual top three. The first one that you can't even consider 2018 a fight year without talking about is Conor versus Khabib. The fact that it ended the way it did was both surprising and not surprising to so fucking many people. I, as well as everyone else, had been watching, and Conor had been working on so many things, but it was just so fucking apparent in that match that despite how much work he has put in, you can't make up for the difference in levels as far as the fucking wrestling goes against a guy like Khabib. If you're a guy like Conor and you spent your whole fucking career working on your striking, there's just too much of a fucking gap, and that was a beautiful example of it, as painful as it was for me as a fan to see that the fucking wrestling level of Khabib was that much higher than the striking level of Conor was when it came to competition in that fucking cage. And as much as it hurt me to fucking watch it go down, it's one of the possibilities that we actually discussed on one of these a while ago that may have been the outcome of that fight. I'm not happy, but you throw a fucking dolly at a bus and sometimes you get choked out for it.
Yeah.
Rear naked choke's a bitch, man.
You know, it wasn't just the fight that caused havoc in the fucking world. It was the aftermath after the fight. They're still going through that shit. Because people can't keep their fucking shit together.
And that after scene is actually, sorry to cut you off, that after scene is actually part of the other reason that I had to put this fight on the list, because that fight not only showed us that Khabib's wrestling and his total MMA ability was greater than Conor's, undisputably, but it also showed that as far as mentality goes, at least as far as I could see here, Khabib isn't fucking there yet. He might be a great fighter, but he might be a great MMA practitioner, but as far as being a fighter goes, he's a fucking green behind the ears rookie, because as soon as that match was over, one, he didn't want to let go. They had to break him off of them. Two, he spit on Conor when he fucking stood up. That's bullshit sportsmanship. That's number one bullshit. Fuck you, Khabib. But then for three, he throws this bitchy little fucking temper tantrum, climbs over the rail, and jumps into the fucking crowd and attacks Dylan Dennis after you just won arguably one of the largest, most eyeball-watched fights in history, and you throw it down the drain like that. That almost, to me, has more of an impact and a resonance in the fight world in 2018 than the actual fight itself did.
I was just to be honest, when I watched that, when that happened, I was fucking honestly disgusted.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, both parties are not without blame here.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What do those old Bible thumpers say? Ye without sin can throw the first stone.
Yep.
Neither one of those motherfuckers should have thrown a stone at all.
Yep.
Look, Connor is a master of selling a fight and talking trash.
He's a
Getting under
psychological
people's
ninja.
skin. He is fucking fantastic at it. The one thing that showed me for that, you can break Khabib.
Yep.
By you get under his skin, because it is very possible. He kept saying those whole lead up, this no bother me, this no bother me. We will fight. Yeah. No, that motherfucker bothered you, otherwise you wouldn't have done the dumb shit you did. And now your ass might not ever fucking fight again.
Yep.
To be honest, I kind of hope he doesn't because of that shit, because that they need to put a hard stamp that shit like that is not acceptable in this sport. You're already going in there and you're doing something that a lot of people see is unacceptable. Don't fucking add fuel to the fire by doing something stupid afterwards.
Yep, I agree.
Get the fuck out. And then the other part of that, Connor did some shit afterwards too. Held to the same fucking standard. You guys know better. Don't get me wrong. When that dude jumped the fence to start beating on Connor again, I think he had every right in the world to drop that motherfucker
Fuck yes,
and put him to sleep. However, you know what? They see it a different way. He shouldn't have been doing shit. It is what it is. But if you guys can't learn to leave the fucking trash talk outside of the ring, that's where that belongs, is outside. You don't take the fight outside of the ring. Once it's done, it's done. That should have been the end of it. Fucking you get your hand raised, you set up a rematch, make another fucking 6-figure, 7-figure payday, whatever the fuck you're making.
I completely agree.
Yeah. Yeah, after the fight, sit there, shake hands, good fight. We'll do this again in a couple months. Don't worry.
They didn't even have to shake hands.
Yeah, no.
They could have flipped each other off. Told them to kiss the darkest part of my white ass, whatever they wanted to do. They didn't even have to do that. I'm just saying, don't take it outside of the ring. Don't be stupid.
And Eve Edwards was on a Joe Rogan podcast shortly after that, and they were talking about that situation, and he put it one of the best ways that I think I've ever heard that particular situation described. And what he said was, to paraphrase, something along the lines of, Khabib had the most golden ticket opportunity that has ever been presented to a UFC fighter. He literally came in, played it calm and cool as a fucking cucumber during fight week against the most savage psychological ninja the UFC has ever fucking signed. Conor McGregor can and has gotten under the skin of every single person they have ever put in front of him, and up until now has been able to put that to work once he gets in the octagon. And Khabib took it all in stride, wore the face of calm, went in and dominated and beat Conor McGregor. And all he literally had to do was turn around and walk out of that cage, and he would have been the most famous person in fight history, because he took down the one that no one ever thought could, in a way that no one was ever supposed to be. And he held that fucking Clint Eastwood fucking pale face standard when he did it. And instead what he did was he smeared his moment with dog shit.
Yeah. He had a moment to take the mic and either say Tony Ferguson, Floyd Mayweather, whoever the hell he wanted to say. He could have said anybody, and he took it. And it's messed up, because like, two wrongs don't make a right, obviously. But his thing is like, what about the bus? But there is two different standards. Hell, we kind of expect stuff like that from Conor, because we know. But when a guy is extremely religious, so much so that he can't fight 3 months out of the year because of Ramadan, you don't expect that. And that's like, something that he should have done. Should have thought a little bit better.
Yep. So yeah, clearly we've all got some strong feelings, and I think undeniably that is one of the top 3 of 2018 that has to be discussed. My second one that nobody else mentioned, and I think bears mentioning for multiple reasons here, was Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou. Because up until this fight, every single time we saw Francis Ngannou step in that octagon, he sent someone into fucking orbit. And poor Alistair Overeem got astrally fucking projected out of this dimension with that uppercut from hell, setting this fight up. So as far as everyone had seen, Stipe was a bad motherfucker, but Francis was fucking terrifying with the power and the ability in his striking that he had. And when this fight came through, Vegas odds had Francis Ngannou knocking out Stipe Miocic by a landslide. And some folks who have faith in Stipe clean fucking house when he put this down, because Stipe didn't just beat Francis Ngannou. Stipe mentally broke Francis Ngannou. He took the power shots and wrestled the shit out of him. Anytime he thought he was in a good place, Stipe threw him the fuck around and ragdolled him like he was a hollow dummy and just had his way with him, put him down when he wanted to, put him where he wanted to, struck with him, took his big shots and gave him one back, and it broke Francis Ngannou's brain. Not only was that the record that Stipe set for the new number of heavyweight title defenses by winning that fight, but it showed us that not only could Francis be beat, he could be completely fucking broken, because his next fight with Derek Lewis was the least amount of strikes thrown in a heavyweight fight in history. Never before has there been a heavyweight fight with that few strikes thrown, and it was very clear that Francis was completely gun shy and punch scared the entire match. So it showed that Stipe just fucking decimated the entirety of what Francis Ngannou became, and that also turned around and set up the super fight of super fights for this year, Stipe versus DC, which tragically ended with that wrestler slip into the uppercut after 3 eye pokes that got DC the knockout over Stipe and made him the quote-unquote champ with an asterisk because daddy's home. But that fight on all levels had such a robust impact in all of the branches that it shook when it went down. That one, I feel, almost had more of an impact than Stipe versus DC did this year.
Yeah, that one definitely did, because he rode the piss out of him that entire fight. He took the shots, and then you said, I think it's probably about midway through the second round, getting towards the end of the second round, and you could just see him wilting and breaking at that point.
Yeah,
Once he got into the third round, it was all over. All you were doing at that point, you were physically taking that man's will, his pride, his manhood, and removing it from him for the world to see.
Removing it for the next fight. He beat him so much, he beat him in 2 fights in a row.
Fuck yeah, he did. He whipped his ass so bad that he lost twice in a row.
Yeah, he won. Stipe won the fight with Black Beast and Ngannou.
No shit. So the final top 3 fight of 2018, in my opinion here, there were literally 2 that I could not differentiate between the 2 as far as impact in the world of MMA and in the UFC as an organization. The effect that these 2 fights had on the overall scale of the things that we talk about here, I couldn't differentiate, so I had to include both of them. The first one we talked a little bit about earlier was Rose Namajunas versus Joanna Jędrzejczyk 2. The solidification of not only the end of the reign of the Boogie Woman, but of the demonstrating that not only was that first fight not a fluke, but that Joanna is terrifying as she has been for the last few years, aside from her run-ins with Valentina, was completely beatable in not just her striking, not just her grappling, but her jiu-jitsu and her Muay Thai as well. Rose clenched with her, Rose kneed with her, Rose boxed with her, Rose went to the ground with her, and she beat her. And she beat her so bad that she ran Joanna out of the 115 division, which was her division, the strawweight queen. She took it on as her fucking name. Rose ran her up to 125, which Valentina shut the door when she got there. But then Rose has gone on and is now already lined up for another title defense again. Rose has basically stamped her fucking name on that 115 division so hard that it smudged the ink that used to say Joanna Jędrzejczyk. The other fight that, in my opinion, ties it for that tier of solidification in a division that was unrivaled was TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt 2. TJ versus Cody 1 was fucking insane. The end when TJ stands up and fucking screams in Cody's face gives me goosebumps just talking about it. That was the most pure, adrenaline-fueled, primitive feeling of fucking grr that has ever been demonstrated in an octagon since Robbie Lawler versus the Red Queen, when he had his lips split and he spit the fucking blood on the ground. That was pretty cool. But TJ Dillashaw not just coming back in and showing Cody that he wasn't better than him in any aspects, but showing that he could not only do it again, but do it quicker and more efficiently to solidify any rumors and any fucking doubts about TJ's ability versus Cody's mouth running and lack of results for it. It was just unrealistic, and especially considering the whole thing really came to fruition based off of the way that Cody Garbrandt had handily beaten the shit out of Dominic Cruz versus the way that TJ and Dominic Cruz's fight had gone very differently when they fought. And that was being used as the fuel for much of the hype of the original fight. And then you see TJ handle Cody the first time, and there was all the talk of it being a fluke and anybody can get lucky one time. And TJ the whole fucking time with that shit-eating grin that you couldn't have paid him to remove, doing every bit of press they asked him to, just kept calm and said that it wasn't a fluke and I'm here to prove it. And when I'm done, Cody can go back to wherever the fuck he came from because he won't have a place here anymore. And then he went in and he fucked Cody Garbrandt up, and he did it so quickly and so efficiently and so undeniably. I actually rewatched that fight again with my wife last night, and at the end when they step in to peel TJ Dillashaw off of Cody Garbrandt, he is quite literally only upright because the fence is behind him. He has fallen back, his arms are completely down, his legs go jello, and he wedges himself at an odd angle against the fence, and you see his neck actually go completely limp and fall against the fence as TJ is going to throw the last shot before they pull him off. And then Cody turned around and said, well, I was okay. Why'd you stop the fight? Nah, son. TJ worked you so hard, your body shut down and you weren't aware. That solidified one of the reasons that I, at least in my opinion, that they gave TJ the opportunity now to potentially come in and kill the flyweight division with this super fight against Henry Cejudo coming up next weekend.
Yeah, so my honorable mentions, U-Meter and Nick both talked about was TJ Dillashaw versus Cody Garbrandt and the Aldo versus Stevens fight. I didn't want to say them because those were both really good fights, but those are a top of my picks. I didn't want to say them because I don't want to be that person that makes somebody like, oh shit, well I gotta pick something else. As we were talking about earlier, I got a couple extras. So I just went with the first three I wrote down in my book. But yeah, those were some hell of a fight.
There was so many to choose from this year that had such fantastic things that were happening. I think one of my favorite things watching all year, personally watching fighters, with the exception of one fight. God, I wish I could fucking erase that from my memory. Was watching Derek Lewis all year long. With the exception of the Ngannou fight.
Yeah.
He was fucking fire all year long. I was very pissed off that he took that fight with Cormier on fucking 5 weeks notice.
Yep.
I wish he would have had time to cardio the shit out of himself, like he said at the end of his fight prior to that.
Yeah,
Said, I need cardio. I'm not ready.
Yeah,
He
that's
knew it and still took it. Which, you know what? I have a feeling they paid him very handsomely to take the fucking fight, and that's probably why he did it. Because he always said he's not a fucking MMA star. He's doing this to feed his family. So if the scratch was right,
He's fighting.
I'm telling you, he had an itch. They scratched it. They fed him enough to where he went for it, even though he knew he wasn't ready.
I agree. I completely agree. And I was actually just getting ready to talk about that. I think that one of the main reasons that happened was because they, and by they, I mean the UFC whoever's that make the fucking official decisions, backed a dump truck full of fucking cash up to Derek Lewis's Houston house and filled his fucking front yard with it. Because literally, we went from him in the octagon standing there talking to Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan specifically said, do you feel that a title shot is next for you? And his response was, fuck no, I need to take my black ass and go get some fucking cardio. And literally 6 days later, he announced that he's fighting Cormier in 3 months for the fucking belt. So
Yeah.
the only thing that makes any kind of sense to me, like you said, is that he has always made a point to say he is not a star. He's here to put food on his kid's plate. So the only thing that I can think of, I completely agree with you, is that they just dumped a fucking metric ton of money on this man's yard and said, look, just give it a shot. You'll be okay either way.
I think along with that buttload of money, they also gave him a personal ball cooler as well.
I would hope so.
He was my Derek Lewis was on my one of the borderline of honorable mentions with him in the Alexander Volkov fight. That was something I wanted in my honorable mentions too. Because that was a hell of a fight.
He is the epitome of a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
Well, and the funny thing is that as weird as it's gone from, you think about almost starting the year out as far as like big fights that were real memorable with Ngannou versus fucking Lewis and the shit show that turned out to be. And then you see we've got 2019 lined up for Ngannou versus the return of Cain Velasquez, and then Lewis versus Junior Dos Santos. So it's almost like the two former giant heavyweight superstars making their return are going to have to both go through both of those two potential stars that have both gotten the shit beat out of them over by the actual current stars.
But you really can't call them stars, but you can't call them an up and coming, because they are both a force to be reckoned with.
Right. But as far as like fights in the UFC, I'm saying like they're both still Ngannou and Lewis are both still young as far as like fights queued in the UFC, not overall.
Yeah.
They both do have a semi-legitimate career outside of the UFC that got them there. But I'm just saying, just as far as this year and their UFC actual career is concerned, they're both still relatively new, relatively up and comers as far as game goes there.
Yeah.
But with the tops of 2018 out of the way, that's going to bring us up to our next subject here. Next weekend is the first UFC event on ESPN. Now that the UFC and Fox deal is done, we move forward into 2019, and 2019 is the year of ESPN, whereas all the fight nights would previously have been on Fox Sports 1 and FX1. They will now be on ESPN and the ESPN streaming service, ESPN Plus, $4.99 a month, as well as Fight Pass. Ugh. That being said, this coming weekend is going to be the first event the UFC has put on in 2019 and the first event on ESPN. So fingers crossed everything goes smoothly there. I'm not going to talk a ton about this card because there's not really a ton of great fights on this card, ironically enough. But there's one particular on the early prelims, and there are two on the prelims before we get to the main meat and potatoes of this card. The early prelim fight that I want to take a second to talk about here is Dennis Bermudez versus Tay Edwards. Now, Dennis Bermudez is 17-9. His record is starting to get that hard wobble leaning towards meh, but he's still always dangerous. But this is another one of those situations where on the other end of that teeter-totter, you've got Tay Edwards, a guy who's 6-2. He's not great, but he's an up-and-comer. He's still a nobody in UFC. He doesn't have any real big fights behind his name. So this is another one of those situations that the UFC has been doing a lot of lately that we keep calling out. It seems like they're taking that old dog and they're using him as a fucking gatekeeper for one of the new up-and-coming kids. They're taking a guy who's got a lot of experience, who's got a lot of technique and a lot of ability, but he's starting to get that road mileage on him a little bit. And you can see his tenacity is starting to wane just a little bit. And they're going to throw him against a kid who's young and he's hungry and he's got a lot to prove because he doesn't have shit to brag about yet. As much as I want to go with Dennis Bermudez because he is a legitimate bad motherfucker, and I completely think that he still does have some years in him. He's got some fights in him. Watching some footage on Tay Edwards, I think that this is going to be one of those situations where the old dog they threw out, hoping to keep the gate closed, is going to get his ass handed to him as the young kid comes running right through and tries to fucking make a name for himself.
Cue the gatekeeper music for fucking. That's the same thing fucking UFC always does. There's a gatekeeper, and that's that middle of the road. You had a good fucking run at one point, and you tailed off, so we're gonna set you up as the gatekeeper to all these young up and comers. I mean, I don't know how long they've tried to do it with Cerrone, who is ironically on the same card, to make him the gatekeeper, but he keeps fucking shutting down people who are coming through. He's let a couple in. Don't get me wrong, but overall, he ain't done yet.
No.
Bermudez, on the other hand, sorry, dude, you've been tailing off for a couple of years now. You had a good run at one point, but it's time to think about possibly hanging him up.
I mean, if you look at another fight on the early prelim, what was it, the Lineker Sandhagen?
Lineker, yeah.
Yeah. Have you 31-8 versus 9-1?
Yeah.
Talk about a gatekeeper.
Yeah, it's another exactly same situation.
Talk about a gatekeeper.
Yeah, that one I kind of feel like is as mile heavy as Lineker is. The problem with Lineker is that they don't call him Hands of Stone for no fucking reason. That little dude, even as worn as he's fucking getting, he can put anybody's fucking lights out if he catches you with that right shot. So, I mean, as much as he is a gatekeeper, he's also kind of the schoolyard supervisor because he could hit you with that fucking ruler and put your ass in check real fucking quick, just as easily as you can outrun him.
Yeah, like when we were before we got this going earlier today, I was looking at the fight night for the Saturday, and I saw that, and I was instantly just thrown off. I'm like, dude, you're putting a 31 victory versus a 9-1 guy. What are you doing?
Yep.
What is this? That is stupid.
Yep, I agree. So now we move into the actual prelim card. There's two fights that I want to talk about here. So the first one that I want to talk about, much as I don't fucking want to because I hate this motherfucker so bad, is Joseph Benavidez versus Dennis Ortiz 2. Now, I don't like Joseph Benavidez. I don't like his style. I don't like his fucking personality. I wonder daily how the fuck Megan O'Leary managed to find him interesting enough to marry him. She seems like a great person, and he's about as fun as a wet fucking blanket. But as far as the fights go, he has spent this last week doing press unto himself with ESPN and a couple of other different media outlet journalists, talking about how not only does he not feel that the flyweight division is not going away regardless of the outcome of Dillashaw versus Cejudo, he went so far as to say that during this last week, he signed a new 4-fight contract with the UFC at flyweight. As much as I don't like him, and I definitely hope he gets the shit beat out of him by Dennis Ortiz because he manhandled him the first time, and I think Ortiz is due for a come up here, I kind of feel like either he's blowing smoke out his ass trying to make that face of the flyweight still a thing, even though we're all kind of anticipating TJ Dillashaw, as he so elegantly put it, getting paid a lot of money to kill the division. I kind of have to wonder, is cocky and confident as he's being and open as he's being about his new contract obligations being specifically set at 125, is this really just an angle by the UFC to try and hype up the potential of the division being killed? Or is this really the division possibly being killed and Benavidez is just dragging his fucking heels and he just signed a 4-fight contract and it doesn't say shit about 125?
Now that division's not getting killed off. I guarantee it.
You know, I'm not one to call somebody a fucking liar, but I'm thinking he's lying.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm pretty sure that when you sign a fight contract, that shit doesn't always say that you're going to fight at a specific weight 4 fucking times. No. Those fight contracts say, yeah, you got 4 fights. Now, it might say 125 on there. Guess what? We're giving you 4 fights, but we're going to kill the fucking division. So if you want those 4 other fights, you're going to have to go to a different weight class because that division is no more. That could be a sneaky-ass backwards way of fucking getting those guys to stay on contract with them and go, look, you can't go anywhere because you have these 4 fights with us.
Right.
We're going to kill the division, so if you want these 4 fights or to
we
get
tell you.
released, you have to go up a weight class, or you're going to have to fight us to get released.
Yeah, I don't think that class is going to get torn down. Like, I fight for a company that Dana owns, so that weight class is the most overly saturated weight class in our state, in the state of Ohio. That is the most oversaturated weight class. There's no way that weight class is going to get broken off. No way.
And that's actually one of the reasons why I specifically wanted to get your opinion on this, because it's one of the few things that I haven't been able to find, much as my Google foo is finally sharpened. I couldn't find a specific contract or a copy of a contract, and I'm guessing it's because of the NDAs that come along with it, but I couldn't find anything relating to a specific contract similar to what Zuffa might use that I could use as an example to say, well, yes, it does say that you fight at this weight class, or just says that you get this many fights. So I was wondering if maybe you had any inside input on that.
So my contract for 2019 is, it has your weight class listed, but it has a weight class listed for opportunity to move up. But with that being said, I'm still listed as a bantamweight fighter.
Right.
So in order for me to move up, I have to make headway into the next weight class. And the amount of people that are in the flyweight class in the UFC, I don't see enough of them making headway into bantam to kill off that class. Like, there's not enough people that can move up that weight that can still be effective, that can still bust ass, and then that entire weight class is completely oversaturated. So you're killing a class, but you're oversaturating another. And then you're going to want the people that are in that class to move up to continue fighting and competing with people that are real competition. But again, you're oversaturating weight classes. That's not a smart move. You're putting more people to sign for this title fight and that title fight and cause drama and all this kind of other thing. But then you're putting too many names in a bucket at once. That's not how you operate a business. We had the same. I was just at training 2 days ago. We were talking about this because if they shut the weight class down, we would probably shut the weight class down. We're owned and operated by the same people.
Right.
I don't see it happening because we have, from what they said earlier this week, there's 134 people that fight in the flyweight class in just the state of Ohio alone. That's 134 people that have to move up to bantamweight or drop out of the fucking league. And there's a lot of good fighters in that class.
I understand the oversaturating saturating the next fucking weight class up. However, how many fighters are there that walk around 2-3 weight classes above and drop that weight to get down to that?
Yeah.
Now, here's the catch. That means any one of those motherfuckers can move up.
Yeah.
So, and to be honest, it's less strenuous on them. So I don't see it as a problem with them not being able to go up the division. I think just a lot of them don't want to.
They're comfortable where they're at.
Yeah.
They're comfortable with their
that's fine. I get it. But at the same time, I have this strange inkling that they are going to end up killing that division off.
Well, and to that point, I've also heard recently on a couple of the message boards that I watch for little tidbits and rumors and things here, there's been a lot more to look. It's been around for a while, but it's been a lot more prevalent lately since we've been coming up on this fight with as much hype as around this fight. One of the rumors floating around right now is that the reason that they're trying to quote unquote kill off the flyweight division in the UFC is Dana has always said that the flyweight division has never been a draw, even with somebody as dominant as fucking DJ. It was never enough of a draw, and there's so fucking many more flyweights than there are numbers-wise and any of the other divisions that it's actually a little bit of an impedance trying to put cards together because you constantly have to look out, regardless of the other divisions that you got. You have multiple fights that you have to make to move the flyweight division along so that it's not getting stagnant because of how many fighters there are. And that one of the things they might be trying to do because of that, and I don't know how feasible it's going to be realistically, but it is an interesting idea, is that when the UFC potentially cuts the flyweights off, that there's going to be some sort of other organization, whether it's a UFC off branch or whether Golden Pony takes up the fucking reins, or if Bellator picks up and decides that they're going to go with it, or Ryzen or ONE FC or any of the other, predominant organizations are going to pick up and specialize in flyweight and atomweight so that they can keep just the small guys, and that's all the promotion is going to be, so that everyone gets the chance to be that big recognized star, because they're going to be the quote-unquote heavyweights of that organization, so that the UFC can focus on their money fights, which everyone knows has never been down in the flyweight division, and they can take their Cejudo versus Dillashaw, throw it out the window, and then it's Dillashaw and up going forward. But at the same time, those guys aren't getting swept to the side. They're getting their own chance to shine in a different organization setup that's just for them.
I can see if they do shut off flyweight, it'd be towards the end of this year, because they still have a contract to fulfill. I'd have to say that it had to be towards the end of this year. We just got into this year, and it's already a topic.
Right.
And it's something that we'll see over the next fucking 12 months or so, because we'll know, I would think, by the end of 2019, you will know for sure whether it's going to stay or whether it's going to go.
I agree.
Unless they did something. Yeah. They always talk, whatchamacallit talks about it all the time. The guy coming in from ONE that got traded for DJ.
Askren.
Yeah, Askren's talking about my recalling names tonight is terrible. So he's talking about how they do how they do weight differently over there, how they take your hydration levels or whatever, and essentially that would move everybody up. Yep. So if that happened and they did get rid of a division and it is so oversaturated and there still is a lot of people and they added that 165, then everybody would move up, and essentially everybody in 125 would be 135, 135 would be 145, and so on and so on. And then the 165 would get, filled up with whoever was in 155 and so on. So maybe that would work too. But I think that other thing sounds good too, having a whole other. It would have to be called UFC though, I think, because it would have to carry that name because that's the glory of it, isn't it? To be able to fight in UFC, the best fighters in the world. You know,
the most, I won't say the most credible one that I've seen recently, their breakdown or their engineering of it, if you will, was that it was basically going to be, or the ideal goal was that it wouldn't be a UFC per se, but it would be a separate organization. That way you could take the smaller guys, which are often overlooked in many of the organizations, and have them be able to migrate in and make this a thing of its own for guys from everywhere, from all of the different organizations, where realistically all around the world, the little guys, while some of the big names get some praises, little guys never will draw, at least right now, as much attention as a fucking Stipe DC2 would. Because you could announce that there's a card right now for 4th of July with just DC Stipe. No fucking early prelim, no prelim, just one fucking fight. And that's going to get more eyes on that one fight than the biggest 125 fights you can put all year long combined. So if you
you're talking, you're talking just an entire company devoted towards like 135 below.
Yeah, exactly. Like 135 and under for the smaller guys.
I can get on board with that. That actually, I don't think that'd be a bad idea.
Because realistically, and not a lot of people know, because again, little guys don't get as much promotion, but if you're a hardcore fight fan, like I tend to be in some situations, there's still organizations that put on quite a few atom weight fights. And those little tiny Mickey Mouse sized motherfuckers get crazy, man. They're fast as shit. They're technical as all get out. And some of those fights are literally fireworks from the fucking start bell to the close bell. But if you're putting it up against a fucking, Ben Askren and Robbie Lawler, for Askren making his debut at 170 in the UFC, up against the biggest fucking 125 name you can throw out there right now, you're just not going to hold a candle if you're having to compete against the guys that are beyond what you're able to draw, unless you get a whole new thing that's just for these little guys, and they're the star of their own fucking show.
I can appreciate that.
Here's the one thing I will say when it comes to the 125 right now. In all theory, the way that the UFC would have this work, right now, their biggest draw would be Henry Cejudo. Because he's the champ. He should be the biggest draw at that weight class.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who's going to be that second biggest draw right now at 125? Fucking name him.
That's the thing, is it was going to be awesome, but they got rid of DJ. Like they finally got what they needed. They needed competition with DJ, and then they fucking had to get rid of him, which was it was an awesome trade, but really that's what they needed. They needed somebody to beat him to make it more interesting. And then all of a sudden he's away, and now it's just Henry Cejudo, which not a lot of people even know him really. They're just, and I love little guys fight. I think it's fucking awesome. I mean. I like seeing people get knocked out, but sometimes it's too short, and I like seeing guys go at it for a long time, and it's fast, and they're very technical, and it's awesome.
Well, and that's one of the things that people don't realize. Again, I'm not a fan, but I'll give props where props are due. Henry Cejudo is a fucking Olympian. He was a fucking Olympic wrestler. The dude is not a fucking nobody. He didn't walk in off the street and decide one day that he wants to put some fucking gloves and a jockstrap on and go wrestle some dudes in a gym. He's been doing this his whole fucking life at an Olympic level. He is as legit as fucking legit can be. And now, not only is he an Olympic wrestler, he's the UFC champion, regardless of how he got it, motherfucker. He's got a UFC belt and a fucking Olympic medal on his resume. I don't have either one of those fucking things, but you know what? My name still draws more than his does in certain circles, and I'm a fucking nobody. So there's a promotion problem with the little guys the way that things exist now. So I can completely understand from the UFC side wanting to do something. And to that point, there's also some rumors going around now that one of the reasons that DJ went to one immediately after that fight with Cejudo was that he was literally just getting fucking tired of playing the UFC game. He's got the most division, or the most title defenses in UFC history in any fucking division. He ran that division so fucking dry. They brought in people from other organizations that were undefeated in their organizations, and he beat the best of them like it was a fucking walk in the park on a Saturday afternoon. And then you turn around and you look at what he's going to do now. DJ's a huge fucking gamer. He's almost more into gaming than he is into fighting. But he's also one of the most explosive and fucking just unbelievably talented smaller fighters in the world. And now he's going to Asia, where he's going to be a fucking world-class star like he should be in the octagon, as well as his fucking gaming platform side of it has gone through the fucking roof because now he's got the best of the best. He's got more eyes on his gaming side. His sponsors can actually come back and fully take care of him again because One doesn't give a shit about your sponsors being all over your shit or giving you money like the UFC does. So DJ's going to a place now where he's going to get paid, son, and he's going to get to do whatever the fuck he wants, whenever the fuck he wants, with Dana White not giving a single word as to what he can or can't do.
What company is he going to fight for in Japan?
He is fighting with ONE FC. They officially put the first official trade on the UFC roster ever was Ben Askren for DJ. They traded DJ to ONE in exchange for Ben Askren.
I mean, with that being said, he still has a fuckload of competition over there.
That's exactly the thing, is that really, who the fuck holds a candle to DJ in the UFC? I get that Cejudo's got the fucking belt now. That was a fucking judging decision that 99.9% of all fans who saw that fucking fight disagree with. That fight aside, who the fuck else at 125 is going to hold a candle to DJ flying arm-barring Ray Borg Johnson? Like, fuck out of here. Like, that dude is the baddest of the bad at 125 as far as the UFC and any other real North American organizations are concerned, because they tried to pull in outside sources. But then you send him over to Asia, where he's got a completely new market that is more directed towards the little guys, because there aren't a lot of 265 guys in Japan. There's not a lot of 145s,
135s.
There's a lot of 135s and a lot of 125s and a whole bunch of 105ers.
Yeah.
Japan is full of little guys that go up and down all over the place, and they're super fucking acrobatic. They're super fucking technical. They're super bouncy. They're exciting to watch. And you bring in somebody like DJ, who is that style, into a market that's developed around that style. I understand why he left. I'm not happy about it, because that means, as far as I can tell, the quality of the flyweight division in the UFC has definitely dipped significantly now. But on the other end of that, DJ has got that fucking Willy Wonka golden ticket in his hand right now, standing over there and rising.
Yeah. Now, I remember years ago, way back when it was the bantamweight, flyweight sort of thing, like, you didn't get a whole lot of people that would stand up and just go punch for punch. I remember years ago, they were all take you to the ground, submission, try and just gas you being on the mat.
Yep.
The years have just really changed the bottom 2-3 weight classes, like in the heavyweight sort of division. Yep. You're just standing up punch for punch.
The game is evolving, man. The game is evolving, and if you don't evolve with it, you become Joseph Jonavides.
Yeah.
But moving along here, the other fight that I think we have to talk about here on the prelim card is honestly the fight that I'm most excited about for the whole night. Main card be damned. This is the fight that I'm watching this card to see. It is Alexander Hernandez versus Cowboy Cerrone. This is another kind of one of those situations where they're kind of throwing that old dog out there as the gatekeeper against the young kid, because Alexander Hernandez is 10-1 overall. I think he's 2-0 in the UFC, but the kid is not anything to be fucking sneezed at. If you watch his fights, the kid is strong and he's fast and he's got a good fight IQ. He sees shit coming and he makes adjustments on the fly. The kid definitely has potential, but at the same time, you're talking about Cowboy fucking Cerrone here. And this man is on the tear of tears. He is on the uphill projection of his career, in my opinion. Not to mention being the current record holder now, whether he takes this to decision or he chokes this fucking kid out in the first round, a win by any way pushes his record for the most wins in the UFC history up another notch and further out of reach of his competition. Same thing potentially with the most UFC finishes in history. So if for some reason, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, this is what I'm hoping is going to happen, but I'm just saying all things being considered, if Cowboy can choke this kid out or knock this kid the fuck out, which we know he's capable of, he puts 2 UFC records that are both in his name another notch out of the reach of competition that's nowhere near chasing him right now. Plus, it gives Cowboy that much more credibility to try and make the Conor fight that he's trying to root for right now, because Cowboy himself has now officially said it's not what he's asking for, but it's something he would like, because he knows better than to ask for a fight in the current climate of the fight situation we've got. But he has officially stated he would like that fight. And if he handles Alexander Hernandez, especially if it's a knockout or a submission so he bumps his records up again, it's really going to be hard to try and say that he doesn't deserve this Conor McGregor match to get himself a fucking payday.
That's exactly my thoughts on that to a T. And there's only one thing that I would add to that. He's been long overdue for a big fucking payday.
I agree.
You know what? That man, the fucking record speaks for itself. Has put in the work. He's been the fucking company man. They've tried to play him as the gatekeeper, and he has had none of it. He's got put away by some fantastic fighters that have put him down.
Yeah,
But
there's no simple losses. He's never just had his ass kicked. Anytime Cowboys lost, he lost to somebody who earned their fucking victory over him.
that's right. And
he took
right
it in
now,
stride.
that's it. And right now, I don't think Alexander Hernandez is gonna do that. Look, young buck, you definitely have star potential there, but right now is not your time. Not with what's going on with Donald right now. Oh, Cowboy, he's got this.
What weight is it? Is it 155?
Yep, it is a.
So this will be his first one at 155. Get back at 155.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said it. You said it yourself. I literally just wrote it. I literally wrote it in my notes. Record speaks for itself. Dude, you're talking about Cowboy. He's dangerous on his feet and on the ground. Man, he has too much stacked up in his arsenal to just drop on this kid. He has too much.
And don't get me wrong, the kid definitely has potential, but I don't think that this young in his career, that even though his fight IQ is as good as it is, I don't think that that's going to continue to be able to push him through this one. I mean, Donald Cerrone has a fantastic fucking fight IQ. He hasn't gotten all those fucking wins and finishes racked up for no goddamn reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Dogs went crazy.
Yeah, hopefully he's got that new. He did really look good last fight, and he seems to have a new attitude. And even though he's not, Cowboy's always been Cowboy, and yeah, he's had to fight some rough guys, but you always got to root for Cowboy. That's how I feel about it.
Well, and if you've watched his
champ without a belt.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exactly it. And if you've seen his social media over the last week or two, getting ready to come into this fight, I kind of break into a side story here real quick. When the original fallout started to happen, because it wasn't just Mike Perry that caused Cowboy to have a fallout with Jackson Wink. They've been having issues for a long time. He goes into it real good in detail on the MMA breakdown show with Joe Rogan that he did. But he had been having issues with Greg Jackson and Mike Winklejohn at Jackson Wink MMA for years on and off, which is part of the reason why he created the BMF, the Bad Motherfucker Ranch, on his property. He built a gym. He built an MMA gym on his property, and then he built 3 sets of dorms so that he could let young up-and-coming fighters literally move in out there, homestead style, earn your fucking keep, work for your food and room and board, and then train with world-class fucking athletes in a smart environment under the cowboy eye. Well, throughout all the shit that has erupted, with the Mike Perry situation being the straw that broke the camel's back, he officially broke away. He officially left Jackson Wink. He is no longer a Jackson Wink fighter, which is a hard story unto itself, as long as he's been there and helped build what that is now. But over the last week, you've seen on his social media, he has not only been training at the BMF Ranch like he does, he's also been at Greg Jackson MMA, Greg Jackson's personal gym outside of Jackson Wink. So he's doing his own BMF training, but he's also back with Greg Jackson and with some of the higher level dudes who aren't just Jackson Wink guys. He's actually training with some of the crew that has been there for the majority of his career, the people that helped mold him into the cowboy that we see today. But he's also smart enough to keep his own shit, which has clearly been working for him without that Jackson Wink influence. So it's like we're getting this old flash of the cowboy that everyone first saw and fell in love with years ago, mixed in with this new, more intelligent, more overall outlooking cowboy who has started to put more adaptation into his game and started to fill the holes and really started to become the complete fighter that fans like me have really always wanted to see him become. And as a result of it, it's starting to get him notoriety. He's getting bigger fights. He's getting more attention. Even though he's on the prelims here, this is the fight that a lot of the analysts and a lot of nerds like me who love MMA are going fucking crazy over. Like I said, this is the one that I'm watching this card for. But I think Cowboy is going to clean this kid's clock, man. So, that being said, that brings us into the main card. The first fight on the main card this weekend. It's a weird one. I don't understand how this is on the main card, but Cowboy is on the prelim. The opening fight for the main card is Glover Teixeira versus Ion Cutelaba. Cutelaba is another one of those. He's real new to MMA. He's only had 3 fights in the UFC, and he lost his debut against Jared Cannonier. Now, I love Jared Cannonier. I've been a fan of his for a long time, but he's not a top-tier guy. He's not even close to a top-tier guy. So when you come in and you lose against a dude who's meh, it immediately puts a question mark in the back of your head of, is this guy really fucking ready? Is he really on the level? Or did he just get enough luck strung together to get himself the fucking contract and now he's about to fizzle out? That being said, his 2 fights after that, he won both of in fairly notable fashion. But then you come up against a guy like Glover Teixeira, who, to his credit, he is a fucking soldier. He is a shoot-the-box legend. He has got fucking hands, and he has got jiu-jitsu that cannot be underestimated at any point in the fucking fight. He has got a decent fight IQ, but he is a prime example of one of those dudes who, if you were walking around a car lot and you saw the odometer, you would go, and keep walking right on past without a second consideration. Glover Teixeira has got more road miles than everyone else on this fucking card put together. I just realistically can't see him having what it takes to be competitive in the current field very much longer. And it seems like this isn't so much one of those situations where the UFC is using an older guy as a gatekeeper. To me, this seems more like they've got a guy who in his prime was fucking spectacular, undeniably spectacular. But this ain't his fucking prime no more. And the dude is starting to get that one wheel hobbles a little off center, but the car still drives kind of thing. And it seems to me like they are throwing Kutalaga the bone here, and they're kind of unofficially asking him to just put Teixeira down. Fucking drop him, make it definitive so that we can cut him on his fucking contract and let him go. Because realistically, he's fallen so many fucking rungs down the ladder of notoriety in that division. He's fighting a guy who's only had 3 fights in the UFC and only won 2 of them, and not as a fucking flashy guy. He's getting a lower tier, lower ranked, bottom of the barrel newcomer. So it isn't really so much of a gatekeeper situation to me. It seems more of almost like a mercy killing, in my opinion here.
I can see that working that way. But at the same time, I don't think Glover's ready to go. To be honest, if it's a mercy killing they're looking for, they're putting the wrong person in there against him. Because I'm pretty sure Glover is going to end up taking it. However, I don't see this as a main card fight. This should have been on the prelims.
Yeah, so I've heard that we were talking about this, and I think that's what's the matter with the lighter divisions too, is I heard Dana White say one time is how the cards are set up is basically through weight. Little guys first, big guys last. And then when there's a title fight, it goes little guys first, big guys last. So title fights are always at the top, obviously. And then underneath that is big guys all the way down to the little guys. Little guys go first. And so I think that's how it's working out, which it does seem stupid to have Cowboy on the pre-card and not up fighting, at least co-main.
Well, and now that you mention it, I remember hearing Dana say that as well. And as I'm looking down at the card here, we've got heavyweights, or light heavyweights rather, opening the card, then 115 women, then 125 men, then heavyweights, or no, excuse me, then light heavyweights, then heavyweights, then the flyweights for the title. So this card's bouncing all over the place.
Yeah, I don't think they knew what they were doing. They were wanting to do. I think it was just that, oh shit, we've got to put a card together for our first ESPN deal, and we'll use the super fight, and I'm putting this in air quotes because I can't call this a super fight at all. Henry Cejudo has no draw at all. TJ Dillashaw, yes, has draw. Cejudo, he can go fuck himself with a big black dildo in front of everybody, and it can be on pay-per-view and nobody will buy it because nobody cares enough.
Yep.
But I think this was just the idea of put title, kind of like they did on the first UFC on Fox, where they put a big fight together. But everything else under it, meh.
Yeah.
It's the same concept here. It's just that, and they're looking for that initial draw to kind of see where the waters are at, so that way they know how they have to put cards together moving forward for this.
I can see that as well. I can definitely see that. So, like I said, this fucking card bounces all over the place. So the next fight on the card, and I do want to take a second to talk about this because this one's going to have interesting ramifications as well. Paige Van Zant finally makes her fucking return to actually fighting and not just doing UFC press against Rachel Ostovich. Now, these girls are both tiny, tiny, tiny. Paige is 5'2", Rachel is 5'1". These are little girls. Both of them really, really need this win. But aside from both of them really needing this win, not quite to the same degree, but in the same lane of UFC 232 being less about the fights and more about John Jones, in the last couple weeks to a month or so, in the build-up for talks about this card, Rachel Ostovich has been half of the two that have taken more focus away from the fights and have put it on the outside of the octagon events that have happened. And the reason for that being, for those that are uninitiated, is that last year in November, Rachel Ostovich was assaulted by her husband and had to go through the full public domestic abuse situation. the arrest, the fallout afterwards, the public outcry about it. And the reason that it was such a big deal that she's being put on this card is because one of the next fights that we'll talk about for just a split second, because fuck him, is Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy, for those who don't know, is an ex-NFL player, played for the Cowboys most notably and for several other teams until he was released back in 2014 for beating the shit out of his then at the time girlfriend. Documented, went to jail for it. Not a little incident, big fucking deal. Dude beat his lady, dude got arrested, and dude did some fucking time for it. And they put a man who went to jail for beating his wife on the same card 2 fights after the woman who just got beaten by her, I think it's her husband, or ex-husband now because they got divorced. But that is a fucked up combination to put on a card. I don't care how lacking empathy you have, how business-oriented you are. And to her credit, Rachel Ostovich has come out in multiple reports and multiple press events during this last week, and she said, and I quote, "I didn't even know he was on this card until someone brought it up to me during a press circuit, but let him do his thing. I'm not even going to focus on him. I'm here to worry about my fight." But the fact that Dana White and Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard were willing to put these 2 fights on the same card, it gives me a weird feeling here, because I understand that this is the first card of the year. This is also the first ESPN card, so there's a lot of feeling out the waters here. But at the same time, just as a human being looking at this card, not as fighters, but looking at the people that are involved in this event and seeing that story take such predominant headline status away from the event itself, just leaves kind of an acrid taste in the back of my mouth here. Like, and this is a perfect example of it. We're supposed to be talking about Paige versus Rachel here, but because of what's going on here, we have to take a second to give all of this fucking side story for the people who don't know, because it is playing a factor in the card that's going to go down this weekend. And as much as I hate to say it's the super fight card, because it really isn't, this is a super fight card. They're starting 2019 with a fight hosted by champion versus champion. And that isn't a strong enough reason to catch headlines against these domestic abuse cases that are carrying all the weight of this card. And I feel that that's weird, man, because Paige is not a bad fighter. Rachel is not a bad fighter. They're both fucking gorgeous, and that's going to be a very distracting thing to watch for a lot of gentlemen during this fight. But I don't know. I want to get you guys' take on this, because as much as it is going to be a good fight, and they're both good and they're both gorgeous, so we're all going to fucking watch, the sideline entertainment sideshow value-esque shit like this being the extent that it is, do you guys think that this is a good pairing? Do you feel like the UFC wasn't really looking at that? They were trying to make a card, or do you feel like this might have been like a sly little see what people say kind of thing? How do you guys feel about this?
I hope it was an accident. If they show them 2 standing next to each other, like with a smile, I'll fucking throw up. Because that would be disgusting. I don't know. I hope it was an accident.
To be honest, I hope it was an oversight as well. However, the other side of that, Big Daddy Dana has a I don't give a fuck mentality of, I don't care what you think, what you're going to think. I'm going to do me, because I know what's gotten this business to the point that it's at. One, if it was an oversight, I hate to say this, but you should have canceled one of their fights and moved it to the next card. Even though that next card, if I'm not mistaken, is a pay-per-view.
No, there's one more.
Oh, that's right. There's one more before it.
Yeah,
But
you
still,
got a card every week.
But
Yeah.
I was going to say, there's more than enough cards. Yeah.
just push it back a fucking card. Or move one of those other ones up. Switch them places. This, and of all the places to do this, ESPN, every fucking time an individual in any sport, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's baseball, hockey, fucking curling, the second somebody fucks up and it's sports related, it's going to show. So how does this look for your company going in saying, oh, we're going to put the victim of domestic violence on with a known convicted criminal. And Greg Hardy, fuck you. Because you know what? You are a convicted fucking criminal. You shouldn't even be allowed to do this. Because fighting and getting money to fight is a fucking privilege.
Yes, it is.
You lost that the second you went to fucking prison. You should not be doing this. You should count your lucky blessings that there's some dumb fuck who's dumb enough to say, yeah, we'll pay you. And yes, if that means I'm calling fucking Shelby and fucking Big Daddy Dana dumb fucks, so be it. Those kind of people should not be in the sport. The same kind that take it outside of the octagon should not be either.
I agree. And that's
Except for this is the worst kind, because you went to fucking jail for beating for a fucking domestic violence. And now you're getting paid to fight? What the fuck is wrong with this picture? Your ass, if anything, should be going fucking living in a gutter somewhere, fighting to get your next fucking meal.
Yep, and that's predominantly been what this week, because obviously we're not the only fucking MMA show in town. There are lots of very credible, very reputable reporters who have much more access directly to the fighters than we obviously do. But there have been several very predominant MMA journalists during the last week to 2 weeks when they've basically come out and cemented their opinion that they're not going to change this card, that this is how it's going down, that it would have been so fucking simple with all of the fucking cards that they have announced, because they've already released the UFC's first half of the year's lineup. There's more than enough cards that this one fight, which has no bearing on anything, he's not a fucking title contender, he's fighting another nobody. There's no reason this fight couldn't have been taken and put on another card.
See, something that's super interesting about this is, I said it earlier, and I also said it on the last show of 2018. So I fight for a company that Dana owns out of the Midwest of Ohio. On Sunday, there's a fight. We have a card, and for the light heavyweight title fight of our company is a domestic violence case versus domestic violence case. A father that beat his child versus a child that was beaten by his father.
Holy shit.
This is super fucking weird that they did this. And it's weird because it's a Dana White company versus a Dana White company. This is fucking weird, man.
See, and that almost, and see, and this is one of those reasons why I make a point to mention the Lord and Savior Eddie Bravo in my spiel when I talk about this fucking show to people. Because as much as MMA conspiracy theorists would like to, for lack of a better term, whitewash the UFC's history of turning a blind eye to situations like this, because this is not the first time this has happened. And unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say it, I doubt it's going to be the last time that a situation similar to this happens. But to go so far as to, now that we've lined up the dots here, we've got the receivee and the issuer of domestic violence in the men and women on the event going on for Brooklyn. And then for your local event, which is also still a fucking Dana-run shit show. Sorry, you know what I mean?
It is.
We've got a fucking domestic abuse father versus son going against the son from the father here. That's a lot of fucking coincidence for a lot of real similar fucking charges for something that somebody with 2 seconds of glancing over some fucking paperwork should have caught.
And they're 6 days apart from each other. One is this upcoming Sunday, and the one is the next Saturday.
Yeah, no shit.
That's super strange.
That's one of those. I instantly, when I hear that, I channel my inner Eddie Bravo, and I just go, look into it.
Yeah. It's some weird shit that's going on, man. It's weird.
That's fucking super weird. So we'll move on from that because that's getting weird. The next fight on the card is Greg fucking Hardy versus Alan Crowder. Fuck Greg Hardy. I don't give a fuck how much fighting talent he has, how much potential he has. I understand the old everybody deserves a second chance situation, and I completely agree. Greg Hardy, if he is a legitimately changed man and he has done his debt to society, I absolutely believe he does deserve a second chance. Just not in the fucking world of violence. You were known as a football player for a game of violence. Then you got arrested for beating your fucking woman, a charge of violence, where you went to fucking jail to serve your time for it. And now you've been rewarded for serving that time by Dana White, who gave you a fucking paycheck to go back to the world of violence. And I agree completely that everybody does deserve a second chance because accidents happen, people make mistakes, and you shouldn't be held liable for your fuck-ups for your entire life. I'm a firm believer in that. People grow, and I understand that. But you don't get to go from the world that created the situation that you put yourself into to that situation back to a different side of that same fucking world and now make your livelihood off of the thing that cost you what you were. I don't agree that Greg Hardy should get a second chance in the world of fighting, at least not in America. You want to fight? Take your fucking ass over to Ryzen, take your ass over to ONE FC, go down to fucking Brazil and show those Chuta Box boys how much of a big fucking Big Billy badass you are down there. But you don't get to stay where you fucked up. You shit where you ate. So you don't get to play here anymore. I'm sorry. My fucking playground is closed to your ass as far as I'm concerned.
That is exactly right. And you know what? The only thing I would add to that, being as this was a violent crime that you did your time for, you paid your debt. I get it. Cool. Go get your second chance elsewhere. This falls under the same concept of people who have felonies with gun violence are not allowed to own guns afterwards. Why? Because that's that same fucking concept.
Yep.
This should be the same. You should not get a chance to go and make money at something you just did a crime and didn't get paid. You went to fucking jail for it. What is wrong? You know what? I'm going to take the blame off of Mr. Hardy for a minute. What the fuck is wrong with Dana? What the fuck was wrong with Shelby? What the fuck is wrong with all of them there in that office that said, oh, this is a fantastic idea. We're going to get a fucking lady beater in here and let him fight men. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes I'm about that because I want to see that man come in there and beat the fucking brakes off of your ass so that way you can't do it to anyone else.
Yep.
But you shouldn't get paid for it. You should be doing this for free. If you really want the title, do it for free. Because you know what? You don't deserve to get paid for this. In fact, if Alan Crowder does not win this fight, I'm personally going to be I'm personally going to cry about that because that's a travesty if he does not win and beat the fucking lady beater. Because you know what? In fact, you know what? I would even put him up against, we could put Greg Hardy in the fucking likes of the lady man that was in the GameStop. And I bet the lady man in the GameStop, he ain't going to beat like that. I'm just saying. Little pop culture for some people in there. Now that it's pop culture that it wasn't before. But, you know, hey, you guys have seen it. I'm just saying, I hope he gets his brakes beat off of him so bad that hopefully he fucking retires. In fact, if he wants to break his femur in the process, feel free.
Like something that's kind of interesting is that we were talking about the whole contract thing earlier. I feel like there's something a little bit interesting behind the contract that I sign every year. So the only thing that is grounds for termination of contract is a drug charge, not a domestic violence charge, not a violence charge, not even a gun charge, but a drug charge. The only thing that completely cuts off a contract for the company I fight for. It's a little bit weird. Drug charges, not violence, not beating the shit out of your mom and dad. I mean,
you know, here's the worst part of that you're saying that. because it's a UFC Daddy Dana company, that tells me your contract is probably very similar to theirs where, yeah, go beat your wife, go beat your dog, go beat your kids. We're not going to fucking fire you for that. But if you piss hot for math, we're going to fucking cut you.
That's the only thing that's the only thing that is grounds for instant termination. If you are arrested for drugs or if you piss hot for drugs, it's the only thing that is grounds for instant termination of contract. That's it.
I'm just saying, I'm over this shitbag. Fuck him. Can we move on?
Shit's stupid. I agree.
Absolutely. So fuck him. Moving on to the next fight, we have a rematch that no one really wanted to see, but we're going to get it anyway because Daddy Dana's filling this fucking card for the first ESPN events. It is Joseph Benavidez versus Dennis Ortiz 2, the rematch. Now, hearkening back to what I've already said a couple of times here, even if I'm not a fan, I'll give props where props are due. Benavidez beat the shit out of Dennis Ortiz the first time. That being said, Dennis Ortiz has done a lot of fucking growing since that match. As a fighter, stylistically, his fight IQ has grown. Do I think he's top tier yet? No. He's not ready for a top 5 guy just yet. Do I think he's better than Benavidez is now? Yes. I think Joseph Benavidez has spent more time worrying about his fake tan and his fucking bleach blonde hair and his fucking press appearances than he has keeping his fucking game where it needs to be. Because if there's one thing that you can count on in the fight world in today's world is that it moves at a quick fucking pace. Overall, the game moves at a quick fucking pace. And if you're not ready to run faster than that pace goes so that you can stay a step ahead of everyone else, you're going to get left behind. And all it takes is losing a step or two from the pack moving along to fall out of a position that you can regain where you used to be, because the game is fucking moving forward at a breakneck pace now. So if you want to stay a step ahead of the competition, you got to be ready to run. And it feels like Joseph Benavidez has been that fucking hipster in flip-flops with his fucking hair down, wearing sunglasses indoors, slow strolling behind the rest of the fucking pack of the UFC for a good year or two now. And I feel like this is Ortiz's chance to not only reclaim that loss that he got from Benavidez, but really to both show how much he has improved and to show why the spotlight needs to stop getting put on Benavidez to begin with. Granted, in his prime, in the heyday when the little guys were still the stars of the fucking show more than they are now, Benavidez had a name that was worth watching for. That being said, he's not that fucking guy anymore, and his fighting style has demonstrated that very strongly to me for the last couple of years. He just doesn't have the hunger anymore. And I understand that he's bragging about just signing a new 4-fight contract, and that's fucking great for him. I'm happy that you can pay your fucking electric bills. That being said, I don't think he's got the drive, and I don't think he's got the ability to compete with the current atmosphere of the UFC world. And I think that Ortiz has been jogging right along with the fucking pack, and I think he's learned, and I think he's grown enough. I think Ortiz is going to fucking beat Benavidez's ass this weekend.
I'll second that notion. He's at the end of his rope. I mean, the reason why he's focusing on all of the fucking media, because he's married to fucking media. Just saying, that's gonna change your fucking perspective a lot if person you hang out and talk with and fucking sleep with has that kind of thing, they're gonna sway you. And don't get me wrong, you were a good fighter in your prime. Now you're well behind the rest of the pack. I don't know why you're on the main card.
I agree. So, that being said, The next fight on the card is another one of those. It's not a fight that anyone particularly requested. It's not a fight that anyone's particularly looking forward to other than the people involved. It is Gregor Gillespie versus Yancy Medeiros. Now, I like Yancy. I love the whole Hawaiian 2.0. They're making a fucking rally. They've got several strong fucking contenders. They've got the fucking Bellator women's champ. They've got a couple of other Bellator top ranking guys. They got fucking Max. They've got several UFC high rankers, Yancy being among those. I feel like this is the UFC equivalent of the movie Entourage. I feel like Max is the fucking star that we have brought out of Hawaii, and in being kind to the star, we have let him bring a bunch of his fucking homeboys with, because he's always been with them, and you know you want your champ to be fucking comfortable, and if he's got friends that are as good as him, you want to give them a fucking chance too. But at the same time, as good as Yancy is sometimes, he's inconsistent. And I like Yancy. I want to see him do well. I think he does have good potential. But for the best way I can describe the way that I see Yancy Medeiros is he is the Hawaiian Nate Diaz. Yes, he's got skill, but he spends more time talking shit and smoking weed than he does fighting. You want to be a champ, man. You do it in the octagon. You don't do it behind a microphone, and you don't do it behind a joint. And I'm not knocking either one of those things, but I'm also not trying to become a fucking UFC champion either, so I can have my priorities a little fucking scattered. I think as good as Yancy Medeiros has the potential of being, and as good as we've seen him be at times, I think this is one of those situations where he's fucking off too much, and he's not taking the privilege of being in the UFC as serious as he needs to be to make it as beneficial as it should be for someone in that position. And I feel like Gregor Gillespie is on the other side of that spectrum where he's still trying to make a name for himself, and he's got that fucking visible hunger, and he's got the tenacity. There's a fucking fire in that kid's belly that if you're not going to match, you're going to get burnt by. And I think what we're going to see this weekend is that fire is going to ride Yancy Medeiros off into the fucking sunset, because I think Gillespie's going to take it.
I don't necessarily see it going that way, but it's going to depend on which Yancy shows up. And here's the reason behind this. Because I honestly think because of his flip-flop, I'm hot, I'm cold, there's some fights where he's just fucking on fire. There's some other ones where you're going, did you even try? But I know you train with fucking Max Holloway, so you're going to pick up some fantastic things. However, if your discipline is not the same as Max's, you're not going to do well. It depends on what type of fighter shows up. Is he going to be the disciplined, I've been training my ass off variety? Or is he still riding high on the hog from Max's win over Ortega? We've been partying our asses off because we know Max don't have to train right now. It's going to depend on that. I'm hoping it's the prior versus the latter of the two. I hope he does show up. Because if that is the case, it's going to be a fucking hell of a fight.
It'll turn it into a fucking war real quick if we get the Yancy Medeiros that we've seen when he's fucking on point.
And to be honest, I think this is, for him, it may not seem like it right now, but I think this is going to be a turning point for him. He's either going to ride off into the sunset because he gets his ass handed to him, or he's going to make that turn where he goes, I'm fucking on, and going to start making a tear. This fight's going to dictate that for him. But with Gillespie, like you said, he's still got that young fight hunger in him. He's new. He's the new brand. So
undefeated. Yeah.
Yep. It's gonna be that, and that's the other thing is that coming in undefeated for him is that going to fuck with his mindset at all? Because you know what? I think that's a lot of this last year when we saw those undefeated fighters going in. That whole I'm undefeated, I'm untouchable aspect comes in, and it fucks them.
Well, and to the other point you made as well, as far as, being the training partner of somebody like Max Holloway, we saw how fucking great Max is, and I'm not too fucking proud to admit that I was on the fucking doubt train. I thought that Max had lost a step. Maybe he had fucked his body up too much. I had every confidence in T-City that he was going to take that fucking belt and it was going to be T-City time. And Max 150 fucking percent proved me wrong. But to the same point that Yancey trains with Max and we know how good Max is, just this last fucking card, we had this exact same situation. We had Israel Adesanya, who is one of the baddest motherfuckers on the planet, in my opinion, right now. And his training partner, his go-to guy for years now, Dan Hooker, fighting on the card. And Vegas odds, most of the pros, the betting line, everybody said Dan Hooker has fucking got this. It's an easy fucking fight for him. He trains with Israel. We know how bad Israel is. He's going to walk through this. And that did not end well for Dan Hooker. And
it did not.
That kind of sets up, at least in a small sense, the possibility for this same situation to happen here. Like, I get that Yancey trains with Max, and Max is a bad motherfucker, but guys who train with bad motherfuckers aren't having the greatest of fucking track records right now either.
Yep, and I would like to chalk that all up to say, yeah, that MMA math is going to be right, but I honestly have no fucking clue. To be honest, I would say because of the hot-cold thing that Medeiros has, and I love Yancey. I love his personality. I like the way when he's hot, he's fantastic. But
fuck yeah,
if he shows up just fucking, even if he shows up 3/4 of what he can do, it'll be a war. But if he's not there, it's gonna be Gillespie just taking it out, just purely. And I think, to be honest, I'm gonna call this fight now. I think Gillespie stays undefeated. Medeiros is going to lose the fight. And I'm going to say it this way as well, even if he shows up, I don't think he's going to take it because I think Gillespie's still a little bit too hungry.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, as both of you said, Yancey comes and goes. He's on top one fight, he's on bottom the other. I think if he comes in and with Gillespie being an undefeated fighter, like me being a fighter, I'd love to be in the UFC. I'd love to be a UFC contender. I think if he really fucking comes into this and on his game and plays his fucking reach to his advantage, he can do some serious fucking damage here. He has some reach over Gillespie, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I think he's
got some reach over him.
I think he's got almost 3 inches on it. I think it's like 2 3/4
Yeah,
inches
like
reach
3 to 3.5, 4 inches or something like that.
Yeah, it's a
good difference. If he comes in even 3/4 of the way and he is on top, I think that he could do some serious damage with his reach advantage if he really pays attention to what he's doing and to what Gillespie's doing. I think he could be real dangerous on this fight. I think he could really be dangerous on this fight.
Fun fact, Gillespie has 4 triangle arm submissions out of 5 submissions.
Ooh.
Yeah, see, and that's exactly one of the reasons that I think Gillespie is going to take this, because like we said, I fucking love Yancey, man. That dude he's awesome. He could be a real legitimate fucking star, even just with the fights that he's already had. If he didn't fight again but just kept himself in front of the camera, he would be a notable presence in the UFC that could hang around even just fighting once a fucking year for a good long while, because he's a fucking fun dude to watch fight when he's on. He's great in front of a microphone. He's quick-witted. His fight IQ is decent. But if he doesn't show up on top of his fucking game, which we've seen him do several times, you don't stay that popular with the UFC when you lose all the time unless you're as hot as Paige Van Zandt. And sorry, Yancey, you just ain't that cute, buddy. But with the Yancey Gillespie fight down, that brings us to the main event of the evening. The super fight that no one wanted because the one that we wanted got fucked up with a trade by ONE FC. This fight, for the folks that don't know, was originally supposed to be and had been in the process of being put together for, I think, 2 years now for the timing to work out right. For Demetrius Johnson, who was originally a very hot contender in the 135 division and dropped down and fucking dominated the 125 division. This was originally supposed to be the super fight of what was originally viewed as the two best in 135. It was supposed to be Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson versus TJ Dillashaw. Then we had the whole Henry Cejudo versus DJ2 match and the controversy around the decision there. But Henry got the belt, so Henry became the champion. And as soon as he did so, literally, as soon as they handed him the microphone, the first thing he fucking did was call out TJ Dillashaw for the fight that had been literally years in the making against DJ. I don't agree with the call out to begin with. I think, to make a long story short, I think that if you're going to beat the man, you have to beat the man. If you want to take the belt from a champion, you have to beat him. If it's a split decision, if it's not a clear, unanimous decision, you don't get that fucking belt. If it's not 100% convincing, you beat that guy, but he survived all the rounds, you don't get to take the fucking belt from him. Least of all from someone who has been undeniably as fucking dominant a reigning champion as has ever been in mixed martial arts, Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. That being said, Dana White likes money. So here we are tonight talking about what the culmination of all that time and work falling into what has now become Henry Cejudo, the 125-pound current champion, versus TJ Dillashaw, the 135-pound champion, having a super fight at 125 for the 125-pound belt. So while Henry might have called out TJ for the fight that his predecessor was building up, TJ not only accepted the fight, but refused to let Henry come up to 135 to show that he is that dominant and that superior to Henry Cejudo. TJ Dillashaw is coming down to 125 to try and take the belt away from Henry Cejudo. Now, like we said earlier, Henry Cejudo is not a slouch. He's not some guy that walked in off the fucking street, slapped on some boxing gloves, and decided he was going to go after him some 12 pounds of gold. He is a legitimate world caliber Olympic wrestler. He also has some striking skills because he's working with some great coaches right now. He also has the 125 belt due to defeating Demetrius Johnson. That being said, Henry Cejudo never held a fucking candle flame to the light that Demetrius Johnson used to shine at 135. That also, in the preparation for what created this fight, at least as far as MMA math goes, and we all know how that works, means that he doesn't hold a fucking candle to TJ Dillashaw either. But money fights are money fights. TJ Dillashaw, being the prideful bad motherfucker that he is, stepped right up and said, well, let's do this. So here we are today. The way that I see this going down, the only way that I think this could possibly go down is going to be TJ Dillashaw by knockout. I think that Henry Cejudo is going to try early to box and realize real fucking quick that TJ is much stronger than DJ was, he's much faster than DJ was, and he's much more versatile in his striking and movement than DJ was. I don't know if it's just because of the weight difference or it's just because of the styles differentiating the way that they do, but I feel like Henry's going to come out and try to box to show that he's capable, and it's not going to work well for him. He might survive the first round, but I feel like early into the second, maybe midway through the second, Henry's going to start hitting that wall of frustration, and he's going to try and start shooting for takedowns. And old V-shaped TJ Dillashaw is going to say, nah, bitch, and give him the old cartoon stiff arm. He's going to stuff the takedowns, and then he's going to start putting the real work in. I feel like TJ takes Henry out late second round, possibly early third, but I'm saying probably late second round by knockout. I think Henry's going to try and rely too much on his wrestling and get too cocky about his own striking ability, and TJ is going to give him the same reality check that Cody Garbrandt has already gotten twice.
Yeah, I feel the same way. TJ, I just think is he's just fucking awesome. I even respect him for he's not a likable guy in any fucking way, but I like how he takes it and fucking people call him a snake and he makes fucking Viper t-shirts. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
fucking,
dude.
He's just I just like that. And he's not very likable, but he's amazing. And that would have been an awesome fight, him and DJ. And he's a bigger guy. He just you could see it. Henry Cejudo could say I can go up to 135 all day. That he's a big 125er. No, TJ's a bigger guy. You could see he's a bigger guy.
I agree with you saying it's going to go down that way, 100%. In fact, I would like 10-1 odds it will go that way. The only thing that I see that may change that a little bit, TJ's never fought at 125. So that's an extra 10-pound weight cut. Well, no, I take that back. I think he has. But here's the thing. He's been fighting at 135 for so long, he's not used to that extra 10-pound weight cut. That could fuck him a little bit. Do I think it'll have a huge hindrance on the fight? Not necessarily, but it depends on how he cuts that 10 pounds extra that he's not used to cutting regularly when it comes fight time. Because if he hasn't been working on it to maybe cut down 10 pounds of muscle mass over the last, how many weeks has this been going for since, was that October, September?
Yeah, late September, early October, I believe.
Yeah, so he's had time. If he's smart, he'll cut about 10 pounds of muscle mass because that's the easiest way to drop that extra 10. Then just go through your normal routine. And 10 pounds of muscle mass is not going to make a huge difference when it comes to what you're already doing. Maybe he hits the weights a little less, just a lot more cardio, whatever the case may be. But if he's doing it on I'm just going to cut 10 pounds of water weight at the end, that's a bad fucking idea. You're going to have a bad time. But I think that if he does it the wrong way for that extra 10 he's not used to, that could be a difference where Cejudo might have a small window of opportunity. And I say a small window of opportunity because I don't think it's going to make a fucking difference either way for him. Because to be honest, he's not on the same level. Now, however, that fucking MMA math don't always work, so strange things have happened. I mean, if that small window arises and he decides he's going to walk through him, or if he's smart, he won't try to box with him right away. He will go and try to wrestle fuck the shit out of him, tire him out by forcing him to stuff takedowns or fucking get back up. But I don't think he's going to do that. I think he's going to want to go in there and prove that he can throw leather just as well as TJ, which is bad day.
Well, and to the point that you were making here, I believe it's only 2 fights that TJ has had at 125. The vast majority of his career has been at 135. He has had a couple of fights at 125. But because I'm such a fucking fight nerd, I've done quite a bit of fucking research into TJ recently just to try and get a better back view on his overall career, his adjustments that he's made, the overall arc of his fighting style here. Over the course of fighting Cody Garbrandt, knowing that the potential for fighting DJ was in the wings, he actually cut down to 125 and then went back up to 35 before both of the Garbrandt fights to prove to himself that not only could he get there, he could get there and perform, and he could maintain 125 if he needed to go down to fight Demetrius, because the original plan was that DJ was going to come up to 135 to fight him again. But being TJ and as fucking competitive as he has already several times recently cut all the way down to 125, maintained 125, and then let himself go back to 35 to fight Cody twice. So he is fully capable of getting there. He's fully capable of staying there, and he's fully capable of performing there, which is one of my main fucking checkmark boxes that make me think TJ's putting this motherfucker to sleep.
And if that's what he's been doing, well, then old Henry Cejudo is may as well just pack himself a fucking pillow and a pair of pajamas because he's going to sleep.
It really feels to me like Cejudo has bitten off a lot more than he can actually handle. Like, his mouth has written himself a check that tiny little Olympic ass of his ain't going to be able to cash next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if Cejudo is gonna try and stand up and box with this guy, if he does it more than half the first round, I don't see this coming out of the first round, because TJ is regardless of if he's 135, 125, this kid is dangerous on his feet. He is fucking dangerous.
Cody Garbrandt, to his credit, is a Golden Gloves champion. Cody Garbrandt's uncle Robert was one of the best boxers in his fucking day. He was a legitimate contender. Cody Garbrandt is no slouch with the fucking hands. I don't like that motherfucker in the least bit. Him and his neck tattoos can fuck right off. But
I appreciate him as a boxer. I appreciate him in his hands, though.
He's got fucking hands, and look what TJ did to a guy who's got a record of having
2 times.
hands. Yeah, exactly. Twice in a row. The second time, faster and more dominantly than the first time. So it could be a real bad night for Henry if he don't play smart.
Yeah, if he is seriously considering standing up and trying to prove that his boxing skills are up to par with this kid, I don't see this coming out of the first fight if he does it more than 1-2 minutes. I really don't, because TJ is a force to be reckoned with regardless of the weight class. His hands are something to be fucked with.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. And to a point you said about the call out was just not, I didn't agree with the call out either. And I think where a lot of people get that wrong is, like, the first thing somebody will say when they lose and they've held a title for a while is they deserve a rematch right away. And, Cejudo, if he were to go on and lose the title, I'm sure he would expect a rematch.
Well, he did. He did. When he lost to TJ or to DJ the first time, he got on the microphone and said, "I want to run that back immediately. I want that to be my next fight." And Dana was like, "No, fuck off, back to the line."
Exactly. Yeah. But you should be the person that if you win a title, that you call out for that rematch. Like, if you win a title like that, if it's not a decisive, like you knock the guy out or whatever, you should be the person to say, if they want to run that back, let's run it back. If not, we'll see what goes on from there. Absolutely. If you want that same respect later on, if you get beaten, that's how it should work. But that's not what people do. They're always looking for the next step up,
I completely agree. And I think actually that's as strange of a segue as it is. I think your point is exactly right there. I think part of the reason that people don't respect Henry Cejudo by and large, and for the vast majority of folks in the MMA community, not just my shit talking self, the vast majority of the folks in the MMA community do not respect Henry Cejudo as a champion. And part of the reason for doing that is that in order to be a champion in the eyes of the people is you have to earn the belt that you get. You have to respect the position that holding that belt means, and you have to defend that belt with pride. That's your championship. You have to hold yourself to the standard of the champion of the status that you are. And Henry Cejudo not only doesn't show himself to be as respectful of a champion as Demetrius was, which set the fucking standard, but then he just tried to leapfrog immediately. The second he got that belt slapped around his waist, he wanted to go for another one right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They should take a page out of Rose Namajunas' book. And, if you're confident that you're the champion, show it again. Let's run it back again and
damn right.
Be confident. John Jones, be confident about it. Let's do it again.
Yeah, and John Jones is a perfect example, because not only did he run it back immediately, but when he came back from this suspension, to take Alexander Gustafsson on as his first fight after being off for 15 months, the most contested fight John Jones has had in his entire career, and he's coming back cold 15 months off, and to take that fight, that's the kind of mentality that people want to see from a champion. His outside the octagon shenanigans aside, John Jones, as the UFC fighter, is the exact embodiment you want to see of your champion. He came in, he was modest, he didn't talk too much shit, just enough to make his point known, and he took the hardest fucking fight they could have given him for his first fight back, and as soon as he did, and he won that fight, he said, whoever you want to give me next, Dana, give me next. And what did they do? They gave him the number one contender. He didn't say a fucking word about it other than, looks like you and me are fighting next, Anthony. And he started doing his fucking homework.
Yep.
Henry could take a page out of his fucking book as a fighter for goddamn sure. Maybe not on the outside of the ring shit, because as far as championship and being a true champion in all the terms and conditions that apply to that position, I think that's a lot of the reason why Henry doesn't get that respect, is because he is, it's ironic because a guy who's been on an Olympic platform doesn't seem to understand how to show respect as a champion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
But that being said, we have reached the end of our episode for the evening. We have talked about a whole plethora of things, and I hope that you viewers and listeners have enjoyed this. So we're going to take this around the room real quick, and then we're going to wrap this up on what, we're going to let you guys get out of here. So we'll back it around. So RJ, thank you again, brother, for coming and being a part of this. I always appreciate your opinion here. Tell the folks where they can find you if they want to continue this conversation with you.
I mean, again, thank you for having me. I'm really enjoying doing these little podcast little things. I enjoy this. Gives something to look forward to. If you want to contact me, again, it is at RJ__vapes on Instagram, and then RJ Vapes on YouTube. Throw me a DM. Feel glad to talk to somebody about just random shit, whether it's vaping, whether it's knives or MMA. Like, I just talk about some random shit sometimes.
Hell yeah.
For free.
Thank you very much again for coming on, brother. Next, going around the room here, Ned's other partner in crime, Mr. Nick Devine. Thank you again for coming, brother. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. We had a lot of fun. We had had to be over 3 hours of fun, right?
Yeah, I think we got just shy of 3 hours here. Yeah.
So yeah, had fun, and yeah, RJ, nice to meet you. It's the first time I've been on a show with RJ, and yeah, it was fun. You can check me out, n.divine83 on Instagram and YouTube. And yeah, same thing. I'm always looking for people in the same circles that could talk MMA, because there isn't. I think there's a lot, but it's hard to find. It's hard to find a lot of people. So especially if you're on my channel at any point or on my Instagram, just say, hey, I'm a big MMA fan, and that would be awesome. Other than that, everybody have a good weekend. Happy New Year, and this year should be fun for MMA.
Hell yeah. So last but most certainly not least, the man that I spend more time bullshitting with during an average week than just about anybody else, the man whose Wednesday night show helped give me the balls to put this show together here. The place where you can catch me Wednesday nights is with this man right here and the shenanigans that we have fun with on Wednesday nights. TJ, Mr. Galti Vapes, thank you again, brother, for being a part of this. Tell the folks how they can get a hold of you if they want to keep this conversation going.
First and foremost, thanks for having me. Fucking fantastic as always. There's a whole bunch to be said there. There's so much that is left unsaid that we can't say yet that I know is coming, and God, I think it's going to cause an argument that's going to be fantastic. I'm fucking stoked about that one. You know which one I'm talking about, but I'm not going to say it right now. Because I've been waiting and fucking waiting. Anyhow, you guys can catch me on the YouTube's Golf T Vapes. That's TE Vapes. You can also catch me on the Instagrizzles. Either way, fucking message me. Come hang out with us on Wednesday nights at 9:30 Central Time. It's a good time. And Nick said it best. 2019 is going to be a fantastic year for MMA as a whole. Just look at everything that's going down. Look what happened last year. It can only get better from here, aside from the shit show that is this card.
Absolutely. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am the Meter. You can find me on Instagram under the Meter Vapes. You can find me on YouTube on the Meter Vapes. You can also find me here on the I'm No Joe podcast on YouTube. Feel free to message me if you want to keep the conversation going. You want to start a conversation about anything other MMA related. I've always got a minute here and there, and I'm always happy to talk. Thank you, gentlemen, again for coming on. I always love getting this roundtable together here because we get all kinds of perspectives to talk about, all sorts of points of view that my dumbass can't come up with on my own. So I appreciate your time most of all, gentlemen. Folks, thank you for tuning in. We're going to call it all for now. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the I'm No Joe podcast. And just like these gentlemen have said, I am so fucking excited for 2019. Just what we know of that has already been announced is enough to get me as giddy as a schoolgirl. And there's so much more potential for what hasn't been announced yet. So keep your eyes peeled. We are most definitely going to keep these things rolling. I will try and get at least one of these shot for every pay-per-view event. Time willing, restrictions allowed. We would like to get one of these for every card, but that's going to be a lot with what UFC's got planned for this year. So we'll see, but keep your eyes peeled because I will keep these posted as soon as they go up. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. I am the Meter. Remember, don't let ignorance stop you. You can root for anything. Have a great night, folks.